nice to meet you.
Oh, no,
Nice to meet you. Very warm weather.
I walk by a 60-watt light bulb and I get red. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, no.
I love the beach and all that, but umbrella, I'm there.
30, 40, 50. That's
5W30.
It's very nice, thank you. I'm not. I was just telling you, Scott, I use very heavy sunscreen. And I sit in the shade. I'm very thick. Yes. So I have to be careful. Yeah.
Good evening. This meeting is being held in accordance with the public laws of 1975. Chapter 231, an adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a notice sent to the Asbury Park Press, Two River Times, and the Star Ledger, and posted in the main lobby of the municipal building and on the municipal website. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Jackson? Here. Councilwoman Morandi? Councilman Sturtevant? Present. Councilman Scigliano? Here. Councilman Valor? Here. Councilman Ziprich?
I'd like to read a proclamation honoring Fire Chief Nick Ferraro. Whereas on December 31st, 2022, Nick Ferraro stepped down from the position of Fire Chief of the Red Bank Fire Department, and whereas Nick joined the Borough Fire Department in 2010 to honor the memory of his father-in-law, Tom Hand, a former member of the Red Bank Fire Department, and continuously progressed through the ranks to the position of Fire Chief, and whereas during his tenure, Nick has led 5 firefighting companies, the auxiliary units, and has also served as captain of the Navesink Hook and Ladder Company, president of the Navesink Hook and Ladder Company, secretary of the Red Bank Fire Department Executive Council, director of the Red Bank Fire Department Junior Firefighter Program, second deputy chief, first deputy chief, before taking on the responsibility of chief of the department. And whereas fully supported by his wife Mary and their children Christian and Morgan, Nick's most special gifts to the borough include his unwavering commitment to the borough's needs above his own, and the legacy of public safety service he continued from his father-in-law and passed on to his son Christian, currently second lieutenant of the Navesink Hook and Ladder Company. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, William Portman, Mayor of the Borough of Red Bank, on behalf of the Borough Council, hereby recognizes Nick Ferraro for his many years of dedicated service and expresses heartfelt appreciation for his selfless service to the citizens of Red Bank. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 22nd day of March, 2023. Okay, next up on the agenda is a presentation by Dr. Martello, the head of the School of the Red Bank Charter School.
Thank you. Do you want me to be?
Have a seat there just so we can hear you on the microphone there. That way everyone who's zooming in can hear you as well.
Okay, great. Can you hear me? Good? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. It's my honor to be here tonight to give you some highlights about the charter school over the past year, and then, of course, want to let you know about some upcoming events if you would like to attend. So we'll get started in just a second. Awesome, thank you so much. So I wanted to start with our bedrock beliefs. This is what the charter school is founded on, that all children can learn, all children must care for themselves and others, and all children should contribute to their larger world. It is this that we keep at the forefront of all that we do. Some of our recent recognitions, first of all, our 5-year renewal from the New Jersey Department of Education. We just completed our lottery, and we have full enrollment with a robust wait list. Also, we were recently recognized as a National School of Character from character.org. This was a lengthy process. We first were a state school of character and then a national school of character, and this is a distinction that we will hold for 5 years. Some of the dating time, it sets the tone for our school day. We also have embedded service learning. All students pre-K to 8th grade engage in service learning, and our students are just intrinsically motivated to succeed. And then next we've been recognized for a few promising practices. Those are practices that other schools should aspire to implement. The first one is our 8th grade internship program, and that's when our 8th graders take an interest survey on something they might want to do later on in life. They then research the businesses in Red Bank, and we partner with many of those, you'll see later, those businesses who accept one of our 8th grade students, and they take them in for 1 hour once a week all throughout the school year so that they can learn all about the business. Our second promising practice is our Mentos program, where we do mixed ages, grades 3 to 8, meet with a staff member once a month, and they just talk about things that are important to them. The main focus here is the social emotional learning of every child. We have some teachers that were recognized this past year. First, by the New Jersey Department of Education as an exemplary educator. It's Mrs. Fogarty. She's our kindergarten teacher and master teacher for pre-K. So we were very proud of her recognition this year. Our Teacher of the Year, Miss Porskivis, she was voted on, of course, by all of our parents, our students, and faculty, so we congratulated her. And then we had our physical education teacher, Mr. Chessman, who was highlighted by the Public Charter School Association. They did a full video on him that is really compelling. I encourage you to go to our school website, and you can view that whole video at your leisure. Most recently, our 7th and 8th grade students attended the Shrewsbury STEM competition, and I'm happy to say that our 8th graders placed second at that competition. And of course, I had to put in here our float from the Halloween parade, in which we did take that massive trophy back to the school. That was a lot of fun. Our cross-country team was recognized by character.org for their commitment to teamwork and working together. Our basketball team made it all the way to the championship this year. And of course, we have our annual staff and 8th grade basketball game. This year, the 8th graders did beat the faculty, first time in 6 years, but it did happen. We had a really outstanding 8th grade team this year.
6 years older.
These are just some of the ways in which we highlight our students. The two main photos with the certificates is what we call Charter Champs. Each month we do a Charter Champ celebration. The students are recognized for the core value of the month, and our teachers write up a little something about why the student did receive that Charter Champ celebration, and we do those all throughout the school year. In the top corner, we had one of our students, Delaney Campos Ramirez, attend the 8th grade Monmouth County Dialogue that was sponsored by New Jersey School Boards Association, and she made us proud, of course. And then we have on the bottom there, that is our Buddy Field Day. This is different than the traditional field day because all of our students, we pair up our different grade levels, the upper grades to the lower. For example, kindergartner partners with 7th grade, and on Buddy Field Day, they work together. This event is about team building. These are some of the ways in which we get our families involved. The first photo on the left was our Hispanic Heritage Dinner. In the middle, we have our traditional pancake breakfast that's held every year for our 8th grade students, as well as you'll see our 8th grade models. They have a fashion show that was just conducted in March. Those two events are fundraisers for the 8th grade who will be attending their overnight trip for the first time in 3 years, but we're very excited about it. And they'll be able to go horseback riding, canoeing, team building events as well. And then the final picture on the right hand side is from one of our class dinners. Every month, each class participates in a class dinner. It's just a great time for families to get together and learn about some of the things that the students have been doing. We just held International Day, and thank you, Mayor Portman, for attending. It was a wonderful day. The top photo is our closing ceremonies where all the students come out with the flag of their country. Each class, they study a country and then they put together a presentation that informs all those that are in attendance of all that they have learned. And on the right-hand side, we have our first graders from Brazil who did an excellent job, and our 3rd graders who studied China. I wanted to highlight some of our community partners because we wouldn't be where we are without all of the great establishments in Red Bank, and we thank them for all of their support. The 3 main photos are of our students during physical education class. The students do go out once a week to a community partner. We have Open Heart Yoga, F45, and the Arthur Murray Dance Studio. And then you'll see just some of the other institutions and businesses that help us, such as the YMCA, Trinity Church, Barbizon, etc. The second slide also has additional community partners. And on this slide, most of them are businesses that have taken in one of our interns, and they are working with them this year. So we thank them for all that they do to support our school. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see Lake House Music. They have just built a recording studio and full band ensemble in the school, and students receive instruction twice a week from their instructors. So we'll be having some performances before the year is out, and I'll be letting you know about those. And then, of course, Two River Theater, there's our students attending Romeo and Juliet, of which one of our former alumni was Romeo. So that was a wonderful event as well. Here we have just an example. I mentioned that we have service learning. Our 7th graders at this time are collecting donations for the new Vin Gopal Civic Association food pantry right here in Red Bank. So we'll be donating food to them. And there's a picture of our kindergarten students during STEM class in which they're recording their data on how far a car will go based on ramp height. And that is how we get them from kindergarten to those high school acceptances that you'll see on the right-hand side. So far, the students who have applied have been accepted to the different high schools in which they would like to attend. Some of our upcoming events, we are going to be engaging in a strategic plan. We would love for any or all of you to participate with us. The dates are there of the 3 events. Each night begins at 6 p.m. and we value your input. If you can attend 1, 2, 3, that's great. Please let us know. We have our STEAM Expo coming up. This is an interactive expo in which students will be performing some of the Lake House music that has been going on, as well as our instrumentals. There'll be some art projects going on. Some of our musical scenes will be on display, as well as the STEM projects that the students have been working on. We also have that capstone event from our 8th grade internship program, as well as Shrek the Musical Junior is coming up in May. And of course, in June, our graduation at Riverside Gardens. So thank you so much for providing me this opportunity to speak with you tonight and highlight some of the things about the Red Bank Charter School. I appreciate the collaboration that has been taking place recently, and I look forward to coming back again sometime soon.
Thank you, Dr. Martella.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martella. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. This is Councilman Zipridge. It's good to see you again, and I really appreciate your giving us a full state of what's going on with the charter school. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon, Kristen.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next up, we've reached a section of public comments. These are public comments on agenda items only. And we're going to try and keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, please. I'm going to ask that you only get up to speak once on a topic so we can keep this rolling. And, all right, you got the time signature. So, yeah, I'm opening up for public comments.
Hi, my name is Erin Fleming, 284 River Road. I'm speaking on behalf of a number of residents on River, Harrison, and neighboring streets. I want to begin by saying that the residents that I'm speaking for, we all believe in a robust economic development in town, but we do want to comment on the presentation that was given in regards to the Broad Walk. I understand that there has been a lot of work put into Broad Walk, but our concerns as residents are the following. Traffic. The closure of Broad Street is a main artery in town, and we are a town that is sandwiched from the Parkway to beach resorts. And we really need the major streets to be functioning, because what is happening now is streets like Wallace, Harrison, Prospect, many of the streets on the west side are becoming burdened. We did set up a meeting with the mayor and the police chief and spoke about some of our issues with the traffic. But this does not mean that we don't support Broad Walk. We just don't think 7 days a week is the answer. Also, from May 5th to October is much more time than the town can handle. Now, I've been speaking to a lot of people. There are a lot of people that welcome Broad Walk, that feel it's building community. We agree. 7 days a week from May until October is just too much for us. When Broad Walk is open, the restaurants close off access to the sidewalk. The sidewalk is public property. Pedestrians should have access. Garbage. Mr. Zuckerman spoke about the fact that they would address this issue by putting a second person on the morning shift to clean up the garbage. I did speak with him after the meeting and suggested that we should be cleaning up in the evening. If they need to put 2 people on in the evening when the restaurants close down, the sidewalks and the road should be cleaned, because the residents are walking into town in the morning and there's cigars, broken glass, and we need that taken care of. The key takeaways from the presentation that when you look at it in an overview, what was distressing to the residents was this idea that the Broad Walk was trying to gain more but pay less. So the fees have to be paid. And in regards to the garbage, one of the suggestions was, well, we'll find the restaurants who are, leaving the garbage. There's no enforcement in place, and how are you going to prove whose garbage is left? So that's not a solution. And then lastly, I would say the residents at least that I've spoken to on west of Broadwalk, are definitively against a permanent tent. This was supposed to be a COVID initiative to help businesses. We're willing for it to be permanent if we negotiate the amount of time that this exists. And but starting to put things in place like a permanent tent makes the entire Broadwalk a much more permanent fixture in town. We did pay for these closures to be raised and lowered, so there doesn't seem to be a reason why it can't be raised, lowered on Sunday and raised back up on Thursday. I think that allowing the residents to have their town open and have the flow of traffic during the work week, I don't think there's an argument for we're drawing people away from the beach on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So that's our concerns. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Barbara Boas, 135 Branch Avenue, Red Bank. I appreciate the comments that were just made, but I heartily disagree with them, and I think more people in this town do disagree with that. I think that this is just not fair to the community to ask them to give up something that's been so enjoyable and so joyful for the last 3 or 4 years, and to ask them to just have a few days of fun. And the concept of having a tent there and having people being able to have their lunch there is lovely. It's lovely. It's community building. It's friendship building. It's bringing people into town. I walk in town all the time. I don't work because I'm retired, and I get a chance to walk around town all day long. There's not a lot of traffic in Red Bank during the day. After 9 o'clock and after and before 4 o'clock, I could walk down the middle of Broad Street sometimes when I'm out there walking. And it's not crowded, and I don't think that any of the streets are that crowded. And if you live in Red Bank, you should know how to maneuver around Broad Street, because it's just not necessary to go down Broad Street. And I think that it has made Red Bank a point of interest to people again. We had kind of lost our spark, and this puts it back. And I would appreciate it from May to October, because I was at the beach yesterday and it was gorgeous. I could have eaten outside if there were tables outside yesterday. I'm sorry that we have to have these discussions every year. I think it should just be an ordinance and or a resolution, have it permanent. And we shouldn't have to renegotiate the time and the days every year. We shouldn't have to renegotiate every minute detail of this. River Center does their job. They have, Bob Zuckerman presented a very complete picture of what was going to happen. And it was a nice picture. It was a pleasant picture. It wasn't a picture of argument and discourse and disgruntled people, because people in this town are getting upset with everybody being at each other's throats. And I think that being able to sit down and see your neighbor at the next table is lovely, and I think we should do it. And I think we should continue it, and we should start it in May and stop in October, because that's how long our summers last around here now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I'm Laura Janot, 105 East Bergen Place, Red Bank, New Jersey. I also agree with keeping Broadwalk the way it is.
I'm sorry, could you say your name again?
Laura Janone, Jannone, 105 East Bergen Place, Red Bank, New Jersey. So, hi. So I also agree with keeping Broadwalk the way it is. I don't only look at it from my husband and I taking a nice walk downtown, which we do love, and eating outside, but I love to see children. I was a school nurse for a long time before I became a professor in nursing. I love to see children during COVID chalking on the sidewalk and riding their bikes and doing wheelies. It reminds me a lot of Europe, that they have a lot of areas. We spent a lot of money putting these, I forgot what you guys call them, but those, putting them in. And my husband and I are thrilled to sit out there and watch people come together. COVID has left its mark on everyone, okay? I'm Standards and Practice Chair for New Jersey State School Nurses. That's why I'm late. I've been editing our new guidelines. We had to add a whole new chapter on pandemics. I hope we never have to see a pandemic again in this country or this world. And the mental health issues that have come out of it. I was on a New Jersey State School Nurses meeting very, very late last night, and people are leaving school nursing in droves because of this. I think it's very important for people to socialize. Young people, old people, everybody. I know I have a time limit, Mayor Portman. I've testified in front of the Department of Ed for so many years. You can look back at my testifying. It was mostly against getting rid of school nurses in buildings, which makes me crazy. But school nurses are leaving in droves. All nurses are leaving in droves. And it's important for us to socialize. I moved to Red Bank Could. I could walk to everything. And this has been a big asset to our community, not only for the businessmen and the people downtown, which it has, but also for the people that live in our community of all ages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. Nicole Shore, 44 Linden Place. So I moved here in November of 2020, and one of my first experiences of Red Bank was walking out the door and going down Broad Street. I'm very close to Broad Street with my two dogs on a Saturday morning, right when the holiday season was getting started, and the road was closed off, and there was someone playing guitar. People were going in to get coffee and come back and listen to him play, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I was like, I moved to the right place. So I also walk Red Bank every day with my dogs, and I work from home, so I'm here all the time. I go grocery shopping on Tuesday nights, usually, or Mondays between 6 and 8 o'clock, when I have found, and sometimes I'm driving at 5 o'clock. So I feel like I've seen the traffic patterns myself, and I've seen the complaints about traffic, but I've never, it's once in a rare while that I've seen it really backed up. And usually it's because there's multiple factors happening at the same time. So I agree. I think having the outdoor dining is making Red Bank a draw in the community. Everywhere else you go, there's nothing unique, right? You go into a restaurant, you sit down and you eat. When you have the outside dining and then Catch puts their DJ and their acoustic instrumentalist outside, all of a sudden there's this wonderful spirit in the air, and I think it's really a draw. And sometimes there are dance parties in the middle of the street. I don't think it can get any better than that, personally. So I think it's wonderful. Like I said, I live on Linden. I don't see a ton of traffic. Sure, I'm sure the traffic is more than it might be at other times, but it certainly doesn't seem impassable. And I've heard complaints about, well, what about the ambulances? Well, we have Spring Street that people can just zip down and get right to the hospital. So I don't know if we've done a traffic study, but at least anecdotally, I'm not sure why it's so complicated. I would like to know, I'm sorry, I'm still getting acquainted with the process, the cannabis ordinance, when will that be presented so we can comment on it, or are we supposed to just throw comments out in this part of the meeting?
It is a discussion item on the agenda, so.
So now is the time?
You can discuss it.
Oh boy, sorry everybody. All right, here's the thing.
But you still get 5 minutes.
How many did I use? Where am I at?
2.5, you're halfway.
Keep going. Keep going. All right, so listen, I get it. Great. I'm all for people having access to cannabis, CBD, THC, whatever they need. I do not believe we need to make our town the beacon of head shops, whether that is for THC or CBD. It's all related to pot. I don't care how you slice the plant. And as someone who lives here and grew up off of near South Street in Philadelphia, I do not think it's appropriate to have all of this activity here with a warehouse with armed guards just blocks from where houses are to head shop or CBD shops popped up everywhere. I think, and even the way they market themselves is just very unattractive to a town that is supposed to be a beacon for culture. I did not move to Red Bank for it to be the CB weed destination of New Jersey. So I am really hoping we can rein it in. I'm disappointed that I did not know in time to comment on this warehouse pot farm that's now been approved. We have lots of farmland in the state. We have lots of warehousing in the state. We have lots of empty malls in the state. There are great places for that, and I do not think downtown Red Bank is the place for that. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone online.
David Gilson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is David Gilson. I'm at 266 Spring Street. I think me and my wife moved here about 3 years ago. We're probably one of the younger couples participating in this. We're both in our 30s, early 30s, with our 1-year-old son, and I would like to voice my agreement with Broadwalk that I think it's when we moved here, when I met my wife 5 years ago in the military, and she brought me home. Can you still hear me? I got you.
We lost you at your wife brought you home after the military.
Yeah. She brought me, we met in the military, and she brought me to Red Bank, and I fell in love with the walkability. We then moved to DC and lived in Alexandria, and the entire time I was there, I remember thinking how much I loved Red Bank, and when the opportunity presented itself when we both got out, we jumped at moving here because of what downtown Red Bank provides and what it offers. And, you know, we're a young couple that moved here with our son, and I really love it. So I really, you know, voiced my approval. And I think on the traffic, you know, driving last summer when Broadwalk wasn't open, I didn't notice a noticeable difference when the Broadwalk didn't close, the traffic on Front Street and the surrounding streets. The second thing I'd like to voice approval on is the agenda item about the Spring Street parking, switching sides of the street. I think that's very smart. I live directly across from a lot of great apartment complexes here, and they have a lot more street frontage that would provide a lot more parking for those cars, as well as a lot less people trying to cross the street. So I think that is a great idea. Now the street's been repaved, it makes a lot more sense to have parking on the other side of the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Murphy, you have the floor. You unmute yourself.
Yes, so I'd like to talk about Boardwalk.
Sean, just state your name and address.
44 Rockland Avenue, Red Bank. So, listen, I think most people agree Boardwalk's here to stay. But my concerns lie with, one, the trash that needs to be addressed. And two, the fairness to the businesses on the side streets. So I personally go to Cardinal's Barbershop. And I guess, Chief, this would go out to you. They get shut down during this whole thing. You can't drive up to their parking lot. You can't utilize their business. Somewhere we need to find a fairness. And so far, like we said, through COVID and everything else, that business has paid a heavy price. And I think we need to address some issues. I think it's here to stay, and then come up with a time frame. I'm not sure that time frame we have that's a long time frame. Traffic in Red Bank is horrible. It has to do with, I think, more with, we have state roads, we have Red Bank Road, we have county roads, getting the lights working. to address everything, but I don't think we should be punishing businesses. And, you know, it's just not right. I mean, we have to find a way to do it correctly. I like it, but we're not doing it correctly. And the trash is just horrible. It really is. So we need to address this. And then once we address all this, I think we can make a firm date, come to, you know, an agreement, X date every year. I think it's here to stay. I like it, but I don't think we're being fair about it. And Chief, I would like to know what your response is. Like, you shut down Mechanic Street and you basically shut that business off. And it's not the only business in Redmond that gets shut down. So how do we address that and be fair about it?
We've worked with all the businesses in the area. Cardiners and a couple others are in a difficult spot. The street doesn't have an outlet, a public outlet, so once you come, we will let cars come down Mechanic Street, but it's difficult for them to get back out because it's a one-way street without knowing that there's a couple parking lots you can cut through and alleys, but it is difficult. But the geography doesn't really give us any way to completely alleviate that. There's no way to have traffic on Broad Street, and there's only one direction of Mechanic. So there are two alleys that lead out, one out to Front Street and one to Wallace, although the one going to Wallace is technically private property. But that truly is the only way. There's no alleviating it and allowing cars onto Broad Street the way Broadwalk is situated.
So having said that, right? So we're saying that that business is just screwed, or do we go and talk to the business about letting car traffic go through? I just had a knee replacement. If I want a haircut, and Broadwalk was going on right now, I wouldn't be able to get a haircut.
Right. Well, the reality is no cars can get to any.
That guy's business in half, and he's not the only one in Red Bank. I'm just using him for an example.
Right. I mean, the reality is that no cars can get.
You can't serve half the businesses and screw the other half. You can't. You have to find a happy medium. I believe Broadwalk is a good thing, but we have to be able to do it in a fair way. It's that simple. I'm not asking for trucks to go down Mechanic Street, but a car should be able to come down Mechanic Street, park in this lot, and a gentleman should be the guy with a walker to get his haircut. You literally are cutting off this. We literally right now cut off his parking lot and his business. And he's not the only business. I think we can agree. So these are the issues I want to address.
Thank you.
Ben Forrest, 16 Locust Avenue. I'm only speaking for myself and the other organization. One of the few good things that came out of the pandemic was closing that street. I mean, my wife and I go downtown more now, and I think it's probably because it's wonderful to sit and not hear cars. You know, our town just walking around here, getting at 7-Eleven, and it's car land. And it's really quite powerful. I mean, compare it to Europe and things, but I mean, we all moved to a town. I know Amy and I, when we moved here in '96, we want to be in a town where we can walk and see and do things, and I know you all appreciate that. So reasonable things we can do to keep our town financially healthy, I think, are reasonable, are a good thing. As a resident, I would like it. I'm not impacted, really, I don't think, by the closing, and I do appreciate my neighbors who are. There are impacts. You know, and our businesses, I eat lunch at one that's impacted negatively, I think, by it. But overall, River Center has said that 2/3 of the businesses, when they survey them, said it's a positive thing. And it certainly makes the downtown a more pleasant place. It's really powerful, I think, what has happened there. And it's a real asset that we have it. Of course, it has to be managed well. I've articulated the concern about the trash, and maybe a point made earlier, picking it up at night so that we don't have to go down there in the morning and see messes. Maybe that's the way to go. any reasonable things we can do to try to accommodate the businesses that are impacted negatively, I think are something we should try to pursue aggressively. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Felicia Stoller. I'm a resident of Homedale, but I'm a business owner in Red Bank. I've been here for 8 years. Since we're talking about cannabis, I wanted to just lend some 2 cents. I don't know what you're actually going to discuss, so the idea of speaking before that is a little weird. But I just wanted to, first of all, offer myself up. If you would like, I have traveled to states where cannabis is legal. I have photos on my phone. I don't have 5 minutes to pull them up, but I will gladly show you photos of very high-end, very classy, respectable dispensaries throughout the state of California, in Nevada, in Oregon, in Washington State. I don't understand why people are getting crazy about this. The people in the state of New Jersey voted yes for cannabis. The town of Red Bank opted in for cannabis. I understand there's a lot of emotion because people don't know what they haven't seen. There are businesses that want to have classy, respectable places of business. The head shops that are here in town, that's totally different than what these dispensaries are going to be. And those places, and there are other places that are already selling illegal stuff at present day. So we're trying to rein that in and give people an opportunity to make legal purchases in a dispensary that is regulated by the state, that is in accordance with the guidelines. And I've been going to cannabinoid medicine conferences for the last 1.5 years, educating myself on the subject. It is not weird science, it is well documented. And, you know, again, I know I said this the last time, if you recall during COVID, the liquor stores were open, right, as essential places of business. And this isn't just about partying, this is about people utilizing a plant-based medicine for their health. Mental health too. Sleep, anxiety, depression, focusing. It's not just about getting high and, you know, going out and partying. People are already doing that. So I will gladly make myself available and share with anybody here that wants to understand more about that or understand why dispensaries have armed guards there. It's because of cash. It's not because there's anything else inappropriate that's going on there, and for safety, both for the dispensary and for the people that are there. So it's a little disheartening that people are still very upset about it. I think the town would benefit tremendously based upon what went on at the last meeting. There's a limited amount of space to be utilized anyway. And I would really encourage you to, you know, please allow this stuff to start happening in town. It feels like it's been a long time coming, and a lot of businesses are trying to make it happen. A lot of people want to do that, and they have money tied up in it, and they have opportunities that are being lost because of that. You know, you're tied in to your location and to your lease, you know, or to your area, to your town. I mean, a lot of people have invested a tremendous amount of money trying to bring new businesses into this town. There's plenty of empty businesses in town. There's plenty of empty real estate. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Stoller? Doctor, I apologize.
Okay.
Did I hear you say that there are businesses selling marijuana now in Red Bank?
There are businesses that are selling stuff in packets.
Yes.
Yeah, there are.
Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it. It's a well-known fact. They are selling gray market, black market gummies in town. Okay? It's been going on for a while.
Okay.
I haven't personally tried to buy any because I wouldn't do that, but I've been told. Parents have sent me pictures. I mean, people ask me about products all the time because they know I've been traveling to all these other states. And I'm familiar with people that are manufacturing and multi-state operators. And people send me pictures like, my kids got this, or somebody bought this. Do you know what this is? And I'm like, it's not legal.
Okay, thank you for that. I've heard the rumors, and the more residents who come up and say, yeah, they're selling it illegally.
Yeah.
I think the council needs to look into that and have a conversation with our police chief and our code
I mean,
enforcement.
that's like, but that shouldn't be prohibiting legitimate businesses.
No, it absolutely has nothing to do with the legitimate.
I know. I'm like, is this like the music that's like pulling me off? Like the Academy Awards or something?
No, it has nothing to do with the illegal, with the legitimate businesses.
Yeah.
And we will get there. I'll speak
No,
on
I
it
mean, it's just like,
a little later, but
yeah, I mean,
thank you
like,
for your
I'm
comment.
just being honest, you know. I mean, it's like the elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about, but I just said it.
We're going to talk about
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Cindy you had your hand up. No? Okay.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Donald Ellis. I'm a resident in Red Bank on Highland Avenue. It's just off of Spring Street. We empty out on the Spring Street right near Tower Hill. So I wanted to make a couple of comments. I understand now they're looking to take care of the parking issues that we have on Spring Street. And I certainly have to acknowledge I've been living on my street for well over 40 years, and over the past number of years I've seen this parking problem grow exponentially on Spring Street. So clearly something that has to get dealt with. But my concern is that we're maybe shifting the problem to somewhere rather than trying to fix the problem. So it sounds like it's a logical thing to do to push the parking to the other side of the street. But I think although you push it towards where the apartment buildings are, there are a number of other residents that either have driveways or frontage on the other side of Spring Street that are going to get impacted. I think the traffic patterns are going to change dramatically, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I'll also say, on Highland Avenue, we have a terrible parking problem that nobody's addressed yet. I've talked to Bill Wilk in the Parking Bureau. We've talked to the police department. I've got a list of over 40 different cars that park on Highland Avenue in the past 5 or 6 weeks, sometimes park and stay there for days. Some have been there for a week or 2 weeks at a time, just leave their cars there. And I absolutely know that some of them live in the apartments, in the Green Tree apartments right next to us. I see them park their car and go in. And we're not addressing the problem. I will tell you that I've walked through when I go for a walk at night, take a look into the Green Tree apartments as well. Anywhere from 28 to 61 vacant spots in that lot every time I've gone through. And I've gone through it 8 in the morning, 11:30 at night, a Monday, a Saturday, but I know a lot of those folks park out on Spring Street. So I would ask that one of the things that we try to do is try to work with the management firm over there that runs the apartment to say, open the parking up. I've talked to people that have parked on Spring and said, well, we can't get another spot in the apartment center. I don't know why, but I guess they're all assigned. But the problem is that those spots simply are not filled, so people are forced to park on the street. So for us on Highland Avenue, it's created a big nuisance problem. We've had issues with folks parking, and it's just become untenable. They turn around your driveway, they park there for a long time, they stand out in front like 12 o'clock at night, park their cars in front of the neighbor's house, partying, drinking, getting out of their car, walking across the lawns, chatting. It becomes a nuisance for those folks. But clearly we know that the Spring Street issue has to get dealt some way. So I'm not here to say that we shouldn't address the issue on Spring Street. But I would ask that we take a look at not transferring the problem, trying to at first take a look at solving the problem. Why isn't there enough parking in the parking complex? And I think there are some things that can be done. The other concern that I have is right now, a lot of the cars parked on Spring Street are going south in that direction. And most of those folks that are parking there live in the apartments along that way that go in that direction. So what we're afraid is going to happen, you park on the other side of the street, they're coming this way, they're going to want to go back to where they live and pick up their family member. They swap spots all the time. And what's going to happen? They're going to go right up Highland Avenue, which they do now. There's a dead-end street. They speed like crazy, go up, flip a U-turn, and go back up the street. And so I don't know that anybody has really done a parking study. I'm an engineer. I've designed and built buildings here in Red Bank. I've worked all over the state and all over the world building. So I understand the needs of what has to get done in a traffic study. So I just don't really know that one has been done. Maybe one has been done, but I didn't have an opportunity to see it. Certainly would like to look at it with the borough engineer, which I work with periodically. I don't know who he is. So I'd like to just ask that you take a look at solving the problem as opposed to transferring the problem. So before you make the move to put everything on the other side of Spring Street, I think this needs to be studied a bit more from a technical standpoint and I think from an empirical standpoint. And I'd ask that you give that consideration before you make this move, and also take a look at what's happening on Highland Avenue and on Tower Hill and the adjacent streets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. And the borough did do a parking study. It was probably 2019, somewhere around there, but it was more concentrated. It wasn't concentrated on the residential areas like Spring and Highland and things like that. Correct, Chief?
That is correct. Excuse me. But CME last year did look at not so much a traffic circulation study over there, but they looked at the parking issue and determining, turning radiuses and how many spots you would gain or lose, and they looked at that type of, but not the traffic impact that Mr. Ellis was talking about.
And that's more the concern that I have, that doing a certified traffic pattern study is much different than doing a parking analysis study. And I just think you need to take it a step farther and look at that and see what the impacts are. But also take a look at what alternate solutions there are to take some of the parking off Spring Street and put it back into the apartments where it belongs. And by the way, I can give you dates and times when I surveyed that area and walking through, but that's my opinion.
Suzanne Viscomi, 25 Cedar Street. I've been sitting there for about 15 years listening to everyone and what goes on in town. You know what's interesting, even tonight at this meeting, the one real, I believe, bottom line issue comes down is to enforcement. Enforcement of parking, where to park, who shouldn't park. Enforcement of not drinking on the streets. Enforcement of trash, picking up, who's responsible for cleaning it or ticketing. Enforcement, when I met some people, they were telling me how they're letting dogs go loose at Count Basie Park. Well, who enforces the dogs without leashes? I was on Shrewsbury Avenue this past week, and there was a dog loose. And the guy's like, oh, I let him loose a lot. It's just that he was got an attention of someone else. Where's the enforcement? We just passed the veto and then passed the Airbnb thing. Whatever you guys pass, where's the enforcement? You could have a great idea, a new policy, a new ordinance, a new resolution, but it comes back to enforcement and keeping it enforced. We looked at the, and I don't know if I prefaced, I'm not speaking for any group or anything I'm associated with, but the simple one is even dog and cat licenses. If you look at the trending over the last few years, we're very low. Who enforces the dog and cat licenses? So, it comes down to enforcement. You guys spend all this time going back and forth, discussing, changing, and passing rules and regulations, but it's enforcement. A woman on my street, her mother can't see. She can't walk to her daughter's house because no one enforces that these trucks should not be parking across the sidewalk all the day.
Just want to, for the general public comments, but right now we're talking about agenda items.
Well, all right, so we're looking at the agenda items here, and I'm talking about then cannabis. We just learned right now that people are selling cannabis illegally. So how are you going to enforce selling it unlegally, like the good way? We talk about Boardwalk, right? Everyone's upset. It is a cool thing, right? It's a very unique thing that we have it, and people enjoy it. And that's great. That's the whole point of being in this really cool town. That's why I moved from Bricktown, because it's just strip malls. I didn't want to live in strip malls all my life, right? I grew up there. I loved it, so I see the difference, and that's why I came here. I started playing with rugby, and I enjoyed this small little town and walking to Starbucks or walking locally. But it comes down to enforcement. For us as a community, from businesses to homeowners to renters to people coming in just for an Airbnb weekend, it comes back down to trying to live in a homogeneous, in a world where we can all respect each other. But when you pin neighbors and neighbors against each other because there's no enforcement, when the music is too loud or people are too loud going past your house and your kid's sleeping, you build this animosity. So Boardwalk, right? If you're enjoying it and you're drinking a little bit and you're getting too loud going down the street, it affects people in their homes. So my point is, anything on this agenda or any past agenda. It really comes down to simply enforcement. And I wish there was great enforcement. Hell, I mentioned to you, I am told by a business to park in the fire zone when I Uber Eats. Should I get a ticket if I did it? Right? If I did what the business told me to do when I pick up my Uber Eats, I should get a ticket. And I watch them all. I don't do it because I know I would probably definitely get a ticket, right? Because I cause enough trouble in town. But what I'm saying is, where's the enforcement? Anything on this agenda or prior agenda, good ideas. I agree with a lot of things that go through here. Every one of you guys have good ideas. And hopefully in the future people have good ideas. But the bottom line is enforcement.
Thank you. Laura, we're limiting talks to just one per session, otherwise we'll never get done.
Sorry, I was late tonight.
That's all
I
right.
didn't know you were talking about cannabis.
You can do it later during there's another public comment section near the end.
Hi, my name is Tim McLoone, and I own the Robinson Ale House on Broad Street. We are very grateful that we have Broadwalk. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just want to expand on a couple of things about why we need 7 days and why May through October is necessary. The 7 days, if we didn't have that furniture that we put out there is rented, and there's no place for it to go. So if it closed on Monday and Tuesday, we have no place to put that furniture. We're not a very big part of Broadwalk. I don't think we have a whole bunch of tables out there. But I will say that last year when we didn't have it, we dropped over $200,000 in revenue from the prior year in May and June and most of July. So it was pretty tough. And the only other part of it is the months of May to October. Part of it is just from a marketing standpoint. You don't start full. So you'd want to start in May when the weather's decent and people find out there is a Broadwalk. And the same thing, the best months of the year, as we all know who live around here, usually are September and October. So we'd like to have access to that. But I certainly understand everything that everyone's saying. I owned a business in town years ago, an athletic shoe store, and we lasted about 3 years. We were in the dead bank era, and and it was heartbreaking to see it. And there's still enough empty places that I would hope that can fill out, because they'll see Broadwalk can make it for you. And I just want to say we're very grateful to the town and to the residents. I sure understand everything they're saying. We have never told anyone to park in a fire zone. I just want to be clear on that.
It's not you. I know who it is.
And truthfully, we're scrupulous about cleaning up after ourselves, and I hope everyone else is the same way. I understand, I'm a resident of Little Silver, and I apologize for that. But we are very grateful, and we thank everyone for taking the time to really discuss this through and to address all the issues for the people. But I have to say, it was a lifesaver for us coming out of the pandemic. I couldn't believe it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was pretty not much applause, but
Tim does know how to work a room.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Mostello, Sokol, and I live on the corner of Spring Street in Highland. And it's a big parking issue, and I know shifting the parking to the other side of the street is really going to affect me, because as of now, everyone parks on Highland on my side of the street, so I'm right on the corner. And then I'm going to have people parking in front of me also. So I'm going to have, my house is going to be surrounded by cars. I think there's a better way to approach it. If, as Don said, if we can figure out, park where you live. If you live in the apartments, park in the apartments. I don't think shifting it to the other side of the street is going to make a difference. Pulling out of Highland Street is going to be a problem, because there's going to be cars right up against. We also have the school buses that meet at the corner. So especially in the morning, it's like mayhem trying to get out of our street. I also have cars that park up against my driveway and cars that park right across from me. So me to pull out of my driveway to get out is an issue. I also have people that park on the side of my street on Highland, and they walk across my lawn to get to the apartments. I have people standing on my lawns partying, while they're walking to the apartments. So it's, if we can address the parking with the apartments, have them park where they're supposed to park, instead of moving it across the street, it's just gonna be the same thing, and it's gonna make Highland even worse than it is now. So, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have somebody online real quick.
Adrian Bilal, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. I'm on 266 South Pearl Street. The parking issue, as you know, Mrs. Zipridge helped me a few years back as far as controlling the traffic over the parking over here on South Pearl Street, right around the corner from Cal Basie. I do have the markings, but there are signs that say permit parking, 2-hour parking. What does that mean? For residents, is that it says permit parking. So could someone explain to me what that means?
Sure. So on any street that's time limited but not metered, if you have a resident permit, you're exempt from the 2-hour limit or the 3-hour limit, whatever's on your street. But you have to have a residential sticker on your car, and you have to prove residency with something like utility bill or driver's license, and proof that you own that particular car. And our parking authority issues those for free.
Okay, I'm not sure that that's enforced, because I really think, I just noticed, and I figured it out, a lot of the commercial people that have commercial vehicles, vans, trucks, work trucks, I think they're rotating around the community so that they don't get caught parking in the same spot. Because on the weekends, I have vans that I've never seen before who will park there and park there all weekend. And then Monday morning, they're gone. And my other question is, across from T. Thomas Fortune on Bergen, I noticed that a lot of the curves where there wasn't painted yellow are all painted yellow. And now on Central Avenue going towards down Duckworth, that's all part yellow. Across the street by the railroad tracks that used to be open, now it's yellow. Across the street you have yellow, and I don't know what that's about, because when you try to get out of South Pearl to make a right onto Bergen towards Maple, that corner right there, last week there was a truck there with a trailer on the back, right up to the corner. It was there like all weekend. And you know, getting out of there during the rush hour, you cannot see if you want to make a left. So I'm in agreement with doing a survey basically for the whole town, because other people on the west side have also mentioned to me they have the same issues with the commercial trucks being parked by the driveway. You come out your driveway, and I always come out my driveway facing out, so I don't have to back out. But I still cannot see. And I think one of the reasons also too is because the fire hydrant is right near my driveway. Instead of them making it from my driveway to the fire hydrant, they left a spot there. It's a spot, but really only a compact car should be parked there. I get trucks parked there, big vans parked there, and I cannot see coming out my driveway. So it's a safety issue. I get you people over there on Spring Street. I understand your drama, I know it. Because when I have Red Catholic here, it's another whole story. So I would like for the whole town to look at these parking permits, where these people are parking these trucks, and just people parking where they shouldn't be parking. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody too that right now we're discussing agenda items only. I thought I saw another hand that was, there we go.
Good evening. Andy Zeitlin, 829 Orchard Road. I am speaking as a professional as well as the owner of Canopy Cross Road. From a professional point of view, I just want to point out something that was said about legal versus illegal cannabinoids that are being distributed pretty widely throughout society today. Legal is a regulated product. It is tested by release standards that are part of a standardization process throughout the country, state to state. What legalization does is it introduces quality control, It introduces identity control. It introduces the ability to do toxicology. It makes what is an illegal product a product that can be used safely. My background is as a pharmaceutical executive. I started a company called Celgene that was a major oncology company, sold off a few years ago. So I'm very well aware of what pharmaceuticals do that people are not aware of. And one of the most important things is it standardizes the product so that you know what is in there. And it's a major distinction between what could be sold at these head shops that are unregulated products. In some cases, they were introduced very recently because of the federal farm bill that legalized hemp. Hemp is then converted to CBD without any process standards and then sold in these stores that could potentially be a gas station. But right now you have the issue of head shops that sell glass and all those kind of things, selling them without any regulation, without any state supervision. And actually, the towns, I think, have issues with enforcing whatever they're doing. The introduction of legal cannabis from a state point of view is intended to bring cannabis within a regulated framework so that we don't have it getting into kids' hands. We don't have gummies that have cartoon characters on them floating around because that's an illegal product. That would not be sold in a legal cannabis establishment in New Jersey. So I just wanted to bring that one point up, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tanya Kravitz, 9 Highland Avenue. And I just have a quick question on the residential permanent parking stickers. So if you just have to show ID or a bill, and you get one of those, can you park anywhere in Red Bank?
No. And you also have to show which car it's going on that it's registered to you. So you can't bring your license and put it on somebody else's car. It has to be a car registered at your house. But it's good within a reasonable distance of your home. So if you live on Highland Avenue, for example, you can't use it over on Layton Avenue.
How about Spring Street?
Yes.
Using it on Highland Avenue?
Yes.
So that's going to open up.
Well, sure, because if we say it has to be right in front of your house, what if somebody else is parked in front of your house?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have comment? All right, can I get someone make a motion to close the public comment? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on. Approval of minutes and reports. I know, John, you're going to abstain for all the 2022 minutes, but I'd like to do these by consent agenda. Is that okay with everybody? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 8th through November 9th, 2022?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay. We need to introduce some ordinances. First up is 2023-08, an ordinance of the Borough of Red Bank, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, imposing a 3% transient accommodation occupancy tax. Is there a motion to approve on introduction?
I move to introduce.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Right, and then, before we roll call, does anyone want to discuss this ordinance? I know it got, Michael, you asked it to get tabled, I think last meeting or the meeting before that. Did you get your questions?
Yeah, we resolved that issue, Mayor. Thank you.
Can we just get a little more clarification for anybody that's been following along? Because the issue last time was that people were concerned they were already paying a 3% tax, so.
Yeah, so someone reached out to me and said that they had used an Airbnb in 2022, at the tail end of 2022, and was charged a 3% Red Bank tax through Airbnb. So I engaged Laura Reinerson, our clerk, to help me do some research on that. And, you know, plus Laura, she did the research, and she figured out that it was, and we reached out to the CFO as well, who confirmed that there was no Airbnb taxes being paid to Red Bank because we had no such tax. I think there was a reference to our 2006, I believe, hotel occupancy tax. That was 3%, and that may have been the confusion, that she thought that was enacted and applied to Airbnbs, but it did not. And when Laura did the calculations, she found out that if you broke down the fees that Airbnb said they charged, it didn't even calculate the 3% to get to the total bill. So whatever was presented, number one, was not an Airbnb Red Bank tax, and number two, there was no fees paid to Red Bank for Airbnbs.
Anyone else have any questions on this ordinance?
Mayor, Dan wants to. Yeah. Dan, you just have to unmute yourself. You don't have to actually raise your hand.
It's still on mute, I think, Dan.
No, we hear you low, Dan.
Very low.
I just want everybody to know that before this tax can be effective, we have to send it to the Division of Taxation, and at least 90 days will pass. So if this ordinance is adopted at the next meeting, we then send it to Division of Taxation, and then it becomes effective about 90 days thereafter. Approval? Correct. There's essentially a waiting period, and Division of Taxation has to look at it and review it, and they need 90 days to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on this? I don't know where that's coming from. Right.
Somebody should be muted.
Councilman Zipprich, we might be getting some weird feedback from your microphone.
So did we find out when somebody who has an Airbnb, their line item that says occupancy tax, did we find out where that's going?
I believe I had brief conversations with Laura. I think it was fees that were being charged by the various short-term rental companies, whether it was Airbnb or Vrbo, but it was not coming to the town. I don't know that it was necessarily being represented as coming to the town, or just taxes and fees. I've used those sites myself, and there's taxes and fees added. It doesn't necessarily say municipal tax.
I would just be curious to find out. I think occupancy tax is pretty direct language for Airbnb to be using. So I just, I would be very curious to understand how they're able to use that language if that money is not indeed a tax, because tax is a very specific term that, a corporation or somebody wouldn't use the word tax about a payment going directly to them. So I would just be curious to know where that money's going.
All right, any other comments on ordinance 2023-08? No? We can call for a roll call.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilman Sturdivant?
Yes.
Councilwoman Tridiana?
Abstain.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipprich? Councilman Zipprich? You said yes?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 2023-09, an ordinance amending Chapter 680-35, Schedule 1, no parking of the Red Bank Borough Code. All right, so this is the one we were just talking about with parking on Spring Street. Again, to be clear, as we just, so you guys know, as we discuss this, we're just voting on whether to introduce it, and then it would not become a passed ordinance until April 12th at the next meeting, if that's how the voting goes. So is there a motion to approve on introduction?
Can we have some discussion on this?
Can I ask who?
We were going to discuss before. I was going to discuss between the motion and the roll call, but we can discuss beforehand as well. Just that's fine.
I think Robert's rule says we have to introduce them, then we discuss.
Right.
Right.
So that's what I was.
Motion to introduce in a second.
Right.
At that time, you open it up for discussion.
All right. So again, is there a motion to approve on introduction, or motion to introduce? I'm sorry, the language. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. It's open up for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've heard concerns primarily from our Highland Avenue residents, and I think we should heed their concerns before we move forward. I know this is just introduction, but Chief, I think you mentioned that there was studies done by CME regarding this.
I don't know if I would call it a study, to be honest with you. They looked at the street and mapped out where the parking would be, how many spaces it would be roughly, and we come up with some concepts on striping it to make it a little safer than just leaving it wide open. But as far as a full parking study, no. And there was no traffic circulation study. I could talk to our engineer. I think that might be a little difficult to study that exact example of Highland Avenue, but we can certainly look at the whole situation a little more. It doesn't really hurt to wait another couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that would be prudent for this council to take a step back. To our residents' point about we only looked at parking and not the impact of how that parking change and traffic flow would impact them. And even to Suzanne's point about enforcement, if this is a situation where we're not enforcing the laws that are already on the books, maybe we need to look at that aspect as well. So I would ask that this council take a step back and table this ordinance for now while we get more information and bring it forward once we have that information.
So if that's the case, then what would be permitted is a motion to table with a first and a second, roll call, and then obviously it gets tabled.
All right, we'll have a little more discussion first, and then we'll. All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a procedure. Sorry.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dan. The one thing that our resident pointed out too, and I'd like to have an opportunity to do that, is talk to the management company at Greenwood Apartments. If there's empty spots there, we'll see if there's a solution we can, come up with.
Tommy Wilson, I can do that. We can reach out to them and have a discussion. I have heard that before, not to the extent that Mr. Ellis said, but I have heard that before, that it's being underutilized. There's been a couple of stories out there on why, but.
Okay. John, you have anything to add? Ed, anything to add? All right, then I'm going to go ahead and introduce I'd like to ask someone to introduce a motion to table. All right, can I have a second? Second. Do we need to roll call that, or is it all? All right. Well, all in favor? Aye. All right, we are going to table 2023-09 for now. Next up, 2023-10, an ordinance of the Borough of Red Bank, County of Monmouth, 96-98 West Front Street, LLC, for an access and maintenance easement to 96-98 West Front Street, LLC.
I'm sorry, Councilman Zipper, I think there's a lot of feedback coming from you. Better, thank you. No, not now.
And we're not hearing you. I'm thinking you might not have a good connection on your microphone or something. Mute. There you go. Well, that's nice. Whatever you. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. When you mute it, it's gone. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve on introduction? Anyone? A motion?
Mayor, this is on the access easement, right?
Yeah.
Dan or I can provide some context on what this is if you.
Sure.
Dan, do you want to do that?
Yeah. I will start, and then perhaps the chief could, no pun intended, backfill here. But this ordinance, Mayor and Council, as well as the subsequent ordinance, all concern the same property. It's an approval that was given by the Zoning Board of Adjustment, I believe, some time ago concerning property located at 9698 West Front Street. So the two ordinances that are before you, actually the second one, which is a temporary construction access easement, as a part of that approval, they are either building and or making improvements to a retaining wall. And in order to do that, they have to access borough property to perform that construction. And then obviously once that construction is completed, the first ordinance, the one that's currently before you, is an access and maintenance easement that would allow them to access borough property to maintain that retaining wall. That's about the extent of my knowledge, and I'll turn it over to the chief if there's anything else to add.
No, that covers it. It's just really a technicality to give them the access they need to accomplish what they have to do, both in the initial construction and ongoing maintenance.
I just have a question. Does this easement impact the library at all?
Not the library itself, it's the yard, if you will, next to the library. So they will be moving equipment through there during the construction, but it's not permanent as well. They construct the wall, and then the equipment will be gone when it's done. The wall is not going on our property or on the library's property, it's on their property. But so close to our property, it would be impossible to build it without being on our property at some point.
Great, so has the library or the board of directors of the library been notified of this
Yes.
or provided any feedback?
I spoke to Eleni about it, the director, and all she asked for was notification from the contractor when they were going to be on the property.
Thank you.
And Chief, this is not complicated by the Eisner Memorial Trust. Is that correct?
Dan, I think that may be more for you. This doesn't violate the deed from the Eisner Trust in any way, I don't think.
No, absolutely not.
JD, have you reviewed that?
Well, we're talking about what trust? What trust are you talking about specifically?
So the Eisner Trust, which bequeathed the library property to the borough of Red Bank, has some caveats in it that if we do certain things that are against the trust document, the library reverts to the possession of Harvard University rather than the borough of Red Bank. So I want to make sure that all of those I's are dotted and T's are crossed so that we don't end up giving an easement to somebody and then violating that trust.
Yeah, so I thought you were referring to the Open Space Trust Fund. So I have not reviewed that, and I will certainly review that between this reading and the next reading. And obviously, based upon my review, that this ordinance would impact whatever conditions were imposed by the trust, I will let this mayor and council know. However, I can tell you this. First of all, number one, it's a temporary easement. So temporary to the extent so they could access the property to do construction. And number two, the second one, or the first one I should say, is simply a maintenance easement, neither of which to me impact the purpose for which those lands would have been dedicated, but I will certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Also, just want to point out that Chief spoke to the library director who okayed it, and we have 2 library board members here who could probably give us a little insight if needed. Mr. Hecht.
Stephen Hecht, 135 Branch Avenue. The caveat that Mr. Zipprich is talking about is a restriction that there not be a park in back of the library as part of the library property. That it's perfectly okay to use that for library services, but there is not to be a park. If there were to, if that property were transposed into a park, then we would be in violation of the deed, and indeed there would be a problem with maintaining the library. Board of Directors has discussed it. The director has discussed it, and there was the planning board that approved the site plan did indicate that there's to be no storage of construction materials in and on the parking lot at the library. But if you need, they're going to be installing trees and boundaries, and as the chief said, you can't do that unless you have workmen and the necessary equipment. So that's the reason for the easement. Board of Directors, the trustees of the library had no problem with this, and the developer has been cooperative in many ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, as a second director, I agree with everything he says. He's correct.
So I am still...
I'll make the motion to introduce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a second? Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sturdivant?
Yes.
Councilwoman Tridiano? Yes. Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipprich?
All abstained.
Next is the related ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance of the Borough of Red Bank, County of Monmouth, 96-98 West Front Street, LLC, temporary construction access easement to 96-98 West Front Street, LLC.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Second. We have a roll call vote.
Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sturdivant?
Yes.
Councilwoman Tridiano?
Yes, that's me.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipprich?
All abstained.
Okay. We have a list of resolutions. I'd like to introduce some on the consent agenda.
We also have
I'm sorry, I missed one other one. Let me go back. Thank you. 2023-12. Ordinance of the Borough of Red Bank, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, amending the revised general ordinances of the borough to amend Chapter 490, Planning and Development Regulations, to permit and regulate electric vehicle supply service equipment, EVSC, and make-ready parking spaces, and to create a new chapter, electric vehicle supply service equipment and make-ready parking space.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that was easy. Discussion, I believe this is just...
Roll call.
What's that?
Roll call.
Well, hold on, before we roll call.
Oh, you want to discuss?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone okay with it? We can, okay. Go ahead, roll call.
Sorry. Councilman Jackson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sturdivant?
Yes.
Councilwoman Tridiano?
Yes.
Councilman Ballard?
Yes.
Councilman Zipprich?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we will go to the resolutions. I'd like to introduce them on the consent agenda. It's Resolution 23-84 through 23-88. Question, are we, the 23-88? Which one is that referring to exactly, Chief?
That's just a a renovation to a residence under the affordable housing. It's a program the borough has. It's limited to, I believe, $500 for each property.
You have details, purchasing of windows, things of that nature.
Yep, perfect, thank you. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up is we have 2 discussion and action items, the Broadwalk and the cannabis ordinance. Let's start with the Broadwalk. Sure, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm glad that the Broadwalk was on for discussion this evening because it gives me the opportunity to say that as a council member, I am in favor of Broadwalk, as many residents are. I also think it's an absolutely wonderful feature of our town. I love that it draws visitors to our town, but it's also a boon for our residents. That being said, I don't think that Broadwalk is an all or nothing endeavor. It doesn't have to be 7 days a week for 6 months out of the year. I think the proposal that Bob presented, thank you, Bob, for that, has many attractive features and some that I would like to see modified slightly. And by slightly, I mean a slightly shorter season, Bob, than what you presented in your deck. Starting, since we are a summer town or a summer area, start at the unofficial start of summer, Memorial Day weekend. And let's go through like end of September, beginning of October, instead of the full month of October. I understand that climate has changed and that we have longer seasons, etc. But if we are asking for 7 days a week, I think a shorter season is a fair balance to that. Out of consideration for our residents, considering the issue of trash has come up so much. And then the other issue is the issue of fees. I know Councilwoman Trignano and I spoke about it briefly in the last meeting. But in all fairness, Bob, the fees that were set for 2022 were set during a time very different from during COVID, and the issue of COVID has come up several times this evening. We all know that the country, and Red Bank especially, was facing economic crisis during COVID, so the fees were set to really save our businesses. Fortunately, we're not in that same economic situation to the same degree, so I think the fee structure that was proposed just needs to be looked at and discussed. Thank you.
Anyone else on the council have anything to add?
I think Mr. Zuckerman is in the audience, and I believe we have a discussion set up for tomorrow morning. Correct? We're going to do a conference call and discuss your presentation, and we'll take into account what Councilman Ziprich and some of our residents, both pro and con, have brought to our attention tonight. So I look forward to our discussion tomorrow. Thank you.
Didn't we modify the fees last year? Weren't they increased last year for the Broadwalk?
Yes.
Right. And you feel that was not enough of an increase? I mean, that was, we increased them just deliberately because of the argument last year that, okay, we're kind of on the tail end of COVID here, let's increase the fees. I know the fee increases that we made for the streeteries basically shut them down for the year. I don't think anybody participated, so.
So my apologies, Bob, if I'm not remembering correctly, but I thought your presentation had recommended rolling back to 2021.
For the streeteries.
For the streeteries.
Just for the streeteries.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm saying I don't agree with rolling back the streeteries fees to the 2021 to COVID era fee structure.
Even based on the fact that the increases that we that were implemented last year by this body basically wiped out the streeteries. Nobody did it. Nobody participated in the streeteries program. I think maybe 1 or 2 restaurants may have, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong.
Nobody did.
I don't think anybody did, so.
Right, no, I recall Bob saying that during his presentation.
Right. So it seems like maybe there's a happy medium between the 2021 prices.
That's what discussion is for,
right.
Absolutely. Chief, I know you sent me the documents that I requested. Thank you with regards to the fees. I guess my main concern is, if parking spaces are going to be taken up, that the loss of revenue is covered by the businesses and not shifted to the residents. So, however, I'm not going to sit here and do the numbers myself in my head, but for discussion, if that can be, arrived at, great. We'll discuss with River Center tomorrow.
Mayor, permission to speak?
Yeah,
Our
absolutely.
parking revenue increased dramatically due to the Broadwalk.
Yeah, again, I think it's,
That's a fact, correct, Chief? Our parking revenue increased dramatically during the
In
Broadwalk?
2022, our parking revenue was at a historic high.
At a historic high.
Okay, in 2022.
Last year, yes.
Last year.
Okay.
So, Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
I had a meeting with Bob Zuckerman last week, and we discussed a number of opportunities to incorporate into Broadwalk for the season. I am meeting again with him tomorrow as liaison from the council to River Center to have a further dialogue. So I would appreciate if we circle back to this at our next meeting. There are a number of issues that we need to address, and I think you've all touched on them in this discussion this evening, along with the comments that were made by the public. We will continue the dialogue with River Center, and I'm happy to bring it back to council at our next meeting.
I understand, thank you. My concern is, once again, we are pushing this off to a point where the businesses are not going to have time to prepare for their season. For example, if we don't discuss this again until the next meeting, we're looking at April 12th, because we're off the first week for Passover. And then, depending on, even at that point, we're looking at about 2 weeks that the businesses have to get ready for their season based on the dates that Bob had proposed. So I'm not quite sure what you want to discuss with Bob one-on-one that we probably can't hash out right here with the entire body. It sounds like there's really only 2 or 3 issues. We're talking about the length of time and the fees. I mean, I think those are the only issues as I see, unless I'm missing something.
Well, there's a new element being introduced this year with the giant tent. So that's a new element that wasn't in the prior years. So I don't know how that works when we're asking businesses to pay for the space to use Broadwalk, but we're providing a tent where there will be tables provided so that nobody has to pay, because their patrons can just sit up under the canopy with the tables. So how does that work? Like, why would anybody pay?
There have been, permission to speak, Mayor? Sorry, I'm just trying to follow the bylaws that you guys passed. So in other places that have similar setups to the Broadwalk that we have here, and I know that our executive director of River Center has operated in those spaces as well, they have had communal tents for the opportunity that we're speaking about, and more communal seating amongst the seating of the restaurants. I think, I just want to say it again, this is sabotage by subcommittee. Really, what is being asked of this council is to approve the dates and the fees. It's almost the exact same purview as an extremely long street fair. We have had this annually for years. I am hearing a lot of double speak. I'm hearing I support this project, but then saying a statement of, but not 7 days a week, even though we've heard from everybody who's a part of this project that not having it 7 days a week kills it, that it's not possible to not have it 7 days a week. We're hearing that we want to have it, but we're not starting it. A lot of these other details, if you want to hear from, Bob's purview, which is the programming, or from public safety, which is their purview to inspect a tent, or, if you want to hear more of those details, we can keep having an ongoing conversation about those things. But what sits in our purview is the approval of the start date and the fees. That is when it comes to chain of command and operations in this conversation, that's what's in our purview. So either you want to have the Broadwalk or you don't. So that's really what it comes down to. This is a lot of talking. It's a lot of, I'm unsure, honestly. I don't understand how you can say on one hand that you're for this project and then keep sabotaging it. I don't understand how you can do those things at the same time.
Permission to speak, Mayor.
Well,
it's very simple, Councilwoman Triviano. It's called negotiation and collaboration. It's not absolutism in our thinking of all yes or all no. We are discussing the fees. We are discussing the dates. That's why I brought it up. But if you expect or treat any deviation or disagreement from your point of view as sabotage, then you're not here to work with us. Thank you.
Permission to speak, Mayor.
Sure.
Thank you. That's not what I'm stating at all. You guys have the majority. Let's work it out here right now. Pick what your start date is. If your start date is not that soon, tell me what your start date is. Pick your fees and lock it in. Have the conversation now and lock it in. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour. Just lock it in. Lock it in. Don't wait till the next meeting. That's what I'm asking. Lock it in.
Mayor, if I may? Sure. I am requesting as liaison to River Center to have a sit down with the executive director tomorrow. And there are some concerns that members of the council have expressed, members of the public have expressed. I'd like to hammer that out with the executive director and circle back. I think in all fairness, what I'm hearing from my colleagues on council is that everybody is in favor of Broadwalk. There are just some minor details that need to be hammered out. I think that in good faith to the businesses in the downtown business district, that the council is favoring having Broadwalk. I haven't heard anybody say that they're completely opposed to Broadwalk. Along with the fact that there are a number of mechanical issues with the bollards that were installed in the last administration's plan. As the chief can speak to, there are a number of mechanical issues that are of paramount safety concern at this juncture. But in all fairness, I'd like to ask for a straw poll for folks to just say whether they are in favor of Broadwalk this summer or not. Straw poll, please.
Hang on one second. Chief, you want to
Mayor, I just wanted to, I know Councilman Bauer stepped out, but for Bob and for Councilman Zipper, who will be at the meeting, there was mention of how a restaurant couldn't use the common tent. The liquor license laws would prevent that for any establishment that's licensed is not able to serve outside of their extended area, and I would not approve them to use an extended area that's not attached to their business and not part of their responsibility. That's not River Center or the borough's responsibility to take that on. So, any licensed establishment could not do that.
Councilman Zipprich, I know if the question of the straw poll is, are you in favor of the Broadwalk? I'm sure everybody's going to say yes. Let's
take a straw poll and find out.
Okay, let's take a straw poll. Is everyone in favor of the Broadwalk?
Yes.
Shocking.
Mayor, permission to speak.
One second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So what I'd like to do is based on the dates that Councilman Jackson has proposed, I'd like to take another straw poll. Is everyone in favor of the Broadwalk running from Memorial Day weekend through, what was your suggestion? October 1st. Okay?
Sure.
Ed's in favor of that. Jacqueline, you in favor from Memorial Day to October 1st?
I just think I'd like to have that discussion with River Center. That's just my opinion. I just think I would like to have everything under control in terms of the fees that we're proposing and the dates.
He's right here. Do you want to talk? Can we talk with him now? I want to prove people wrong. I want to show people how fast government can work. He's sitting right here. We don't have to have that meeting tomorrow. He's right here. He's right here, guys. Let's get this done.
Bob, let me ask you a question.
Right here.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know how this works. Is he allowed to be, will we be addressing him directly? Dan or I can ask the attorney. Bob, could you
Do you want me to step
Sure.
up there? Am I
Sure,
allowed?
I'll deal with the fallout later.
Okay.
Are you comfortable, even though it's not ideal, with running from Memorial Day through October 1st?
Well, I will say that I can't speak for everybody because I have not spoken individually with every participant of the Broad Walk with those dates, but I think we could live with that. I think that would be an acceptable compromise. Tim, would that work for you?
The only dilemma we have is gearing up for it. If we're opening up on Memorial Day weekend, that's incredible. And plus the fact we have college kids and stuff we're trying to hire who want their jobs in May. They don't want them in June. They're ready to go someplace else.
Yeah.
I think a compromise is worthy, but a full month is a lot up front. What about the 15th of May, something like that?
Is that something that works for you, John, considering the businesses need some time to get up to speed? Memorial Day is probably a busy weekend.
So I don't want to sit there and put on dates. I wanted to say that in general, you've given a very good rationale. You've given a very good rationale for why maybe Memorial Day we need to start a little bit earlier. And with that information, I would say, okay, but then I would want to move up that end date to, let's say, middle of September. The reason why I'm saying that, hold on everybody, hold on, please. The reason why I'm saying that is because, again, we have to consider the needs of the businesses and the residents. Some residents don't want a 6-month street fair. Some residents don't want that. And I'm trying to consider their needs as well. So I'm not going to be the single one to answer the end date. I'm trying to, say like a 4.5 to 5 month run, I think is sufficient.
That's great. Let's go with it. That's great.
The only thing I would say about ending in mid-September versus October 1, September is probably the best month for the Boardwalk because the weather is perfect. It's 70s
and it still leaves you at your 4.5 month window. Actually, on the shorter side of your suggested window, I would say. It's a nice compromise.
You already lost a month by taking out October.
Yeah, which is the best.
Are you, so, just speaking about the dates of the Broadwalk, we've established that everyone's in favor of the Broadwalk. Is everyone comfortable, as Bob is, with going from May 15th to October 1st? Okay. Okay, you're comfortable with that?
May 15th to October 1st?
Yeah.
Giddy up.
Okay. Michael?
Are the businesses comfortable? Because I'm hearing some dissension.
Well, again, we have, Bob, who's representing the businesses, says that he thinks they could live with that, and Tim, who's here from Robinson Ale House, said that it's not ideal, but at least it gives them some time to gear up for the
right.
season, so.
The participants that I have spoken with, I would imagine would be okay with May 15th through October 1st. Tim wants 2 more weeks, but through October 15th, and we would want that too. Obviously, I'm not gonna sit here and argue against myself and my business. That I'm not going to do.
So, Mayor, another proposal. Because again, I know we've got a lot of voices in the room. How about we agree to certain dates now, and if Broadwalk runs as smoothly as we're hoping it runs, with all of the things that River Center has proposed, no trash, minimal noise, etc., as long as we actually see that come to fruition, we can revisit the end date at a later time and amend the ordinance.
No problem with that.
All right, so the fees.
That works.
Hang on, I just want to get a sign off first on the date. So we're good right now with May 15th, October 1st, and if need be, it's going smoothly, we can open up to extend it. Mike, are you okay with that?
That's good, actually.
Okay. Kate? Jacqueline? Ed, you okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, the other big issue is the fees. I think we increased them. Just talking about the Broadwalk right now.
So on the Broadwalk, I don't have the 2020 fees structure. I wasn't able to get that yet. Hopefully we'll get that soon. Or maybe it was free, I don't know.
It doesn't exist in 2020. We were building the airplane.
Right.
In 2020, we took in $5,900. That's only because all we had was sidewalk cafes. It was
Right.
before that.
Right. So in 2021, the fees were $200 per month per parking space for restaurants with liquor licenses, and $160 per month per parking space for restaurants without liquor licenses. Then last year that got changed to $2.25 per square foot per month. I don't have the final calculations in front of me, but I do believe it was a significant increase that the restaurants who participated had to pay. I can't tell you whether it was 50% or 75%. I don't have those figures right now, but it was definitely a significant increase.
Doubled it.
Yeah, probably, or close to that. When they went from the per month fee structure to the per square foot fee structure.
And Bob, this is it. I had pulled down some of the fee structure, which I was preparing to get together with you tomorrow. So could we revisit that tomorrow? I also am trying to ascertain whether anybody is in arrears for last year.
I was told that there is not, Councilman, right?
Everybody paid last year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Everybody paid last year.
Oh, good.
That applied for it.
Right. There's no outstanding fees due from any restaurateurs for Broadwalk.
Okay. And then one of the other issues that I wanted to discuss with Bob was whether River Center would be responsible for collecting fees and then porting them over to the borough rather than in reverse. And I don't know whether the chief has any objection to that being handled that way.
I believe Councilman Zipper said how the fees being collected. He asked if Bob can collect them and hand them over to the town. How was it done in the past?
It's done through the clerk's office.
The applications were submitted to our office, and we collected the fees and deposited them, and dispersed the applications out to the different departments that needed to approve it.
Right.
That's the way that it's always been done.
Yeah, I would say that, logistically, it would be best for an office within Borough Hall to collect the fees, whether it be the clerk's office or the finance office, directly the tax collector's office. I prefer it stay here.
And we would have no issue with that.
So, real quick, we increased the fees dramatically last year from the year before. Is everyone comfortable with the fee structure just on the Broadwalk that we had in 2022? Yeah? Let me good with that?
I'm sorry, the 2022 fee?
Yeah, so,
yeah,
okay.
Keep it the same.
Good.
Absolutely, yeah, it already doubled last year. We don't
Yeah.
need to increase it again this year.
Jacqueline, you okay with that? Okay. And Councilman Zipprich, you okay with that too?
I'm good with 2022 fees.
Right. Those to me are the major issues. The details of programming, whether or not you're going to have a tent that's properly secured in case of strong winds, I think we can leave in the purview of the River Center. In our code, Tom Welsh, the chief.
Yeah, we would have to get borough permission to do that.
Right.
Is there a fee associated with that?
No, Councilman, we would pay for the tent. We'll pay to secure it. We'll pay for the bistro tables and chairs, and then the public can use them for no charge.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes people ask, River Center money, where does it go? I mean, that's such a direct correlation.
Yeah.
We'll feel that as residents, it'll be
Right.
very tangible.
Right. So, and as the chief said, you will not be permitted to drink alcoholic beverages. You cannot take. The governor has ended the state of emergency, the COVID state of emergency. That will not. You can bring food from anywhere, but not alcohol.
Yeah, to Ms. Kelby's point, we need the enforcement on that as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is, can we go ahead and introduce this resolution? We've hammered out the details, right? I just had a copy of last year's, or actually what the clerk wrote up a resolution Was this just modified from last year's? Is that what this was?
Okay. All right.
It's pretty short, Mayor. Permission to speak. Sorry. This is tough. I could just read it out loud.
Okay.
That
one's, it's copy and paste.
Sorry, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you're introducing a resolution to tonight's agenda that has not been published?
Well, I think it was,
It was not published. It was put on and I believe removed prior to publication.
Oh, it was removed.
Councilman Ballard, correct? I think that was.
Then I'll object to it being added.
Yeah, I when I saw it, Mayor, passed through by Laura, I had some concerns about the language that was in the resolution. So I asked her to remove it so we could discuss it, and that's when it ended up on the discussion agenda. But we have not introduced a resolution for 2023 for Broadwalk.
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Mayor?
Yeah.
So, in all fairness, I think we've hammered out the details of the Broadwalk tonight. I will revisit and confirm everything with Bob tomorrow when we meet. And I think that since all the details are hammered out and our straw poll has been taken and everybody supports it, that we'll add it to the next meeting's agenda for ratification, if everybody's in agreement with that.
Okay. So we're shooting for April 12th for the approval of the resolution establishing the Broadwalk.
And just, I'm so sorry, Mayor, permission to speak.
Uh-huh.
Everybody on this council is ready to support May 15th to October 1st with the fee structure that was in place in 2022? Is that?
That's what we established here.
Okay.
On the public record.
Okay, I mean, there's nothing stopping us then. If that's the action that's going to be taken and everybody's saying it, we could take that action tonight. It's called discussion and action. I mean, if you know that's the action that you're going to take, and you're saying it right now, then you could take it tonight. This is something that has been annual for years. This is not coming as a shock or a surprise. I understand doing things in the name of transparency. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, we could give the approval of these dates for everybody to understand what's coming. If everybody here is vocally saying that that's what they support, to wait till the next meeting, I don't understand.
I think we've already
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
I think we've taken this into the discussion section of tonight's meeting. We've followed our rules and our regulations and our bylaws. This was not published to the public, so it was not forward facing. And I think if we're going to agree on all of the terms tonight, that in all fairness, we follow our own rules and put it on for the April 12th agenda for ratification.
I'm not sure the objection to it, but I understand what you're saying, so we will go ahead and put it on the agenda for the 12th, and hopefully we will cruise through without any more discussion on it and get this approved so our businesses can get established. I'm hoping a month is enough time to let you guys get set up. I'm looking at Tim like he's like the elder statesman of all the restaurants.
I was
You give me a little head nod. I'm like, okay, I'm reassured.
I was okay until he said elder statement.
That's a term of respect, sir.
Just a statesman.
I'm sure you can beat me in a foot race. It's a term of respect.
So I just have a question for Tim and Bob. Are you confused about where the council is going with this?
I'm not. I'm good.
No.
Okay, so you can start your preparations now.
Right.
The formal vote will happen on the 12th.
Right.
We appreciate that. I really do appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no,
Yes,
that's
and
what
so do I,
compromise is
Councilman.
about. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and you understand where this council sits right now.
Yes.
They have commitment issues.
Um,
First, thank you to my council colleagues, and I wish the Broadwalk businesses a very successful season this year.
The other thing I'd like to discuss, and I don't know if it falls under the purview of the Broadwalk, I certainly don't want to violate any transparency laws, but can we discuss the streeteries as well? Because I'm also concerned that they got just shut out last year due to exorbitant pricing. Is everyone comfortable just trying to come up with that? And we can approve it at the next meeting also, but I'd like to have it as a discussion item right now.
Well, Mayor, if I may, I would like to have that's actually part of the agenda of items that I wanted to discuss with Bob at River Center tomorrow. So I think that in all fairness, I am in favor of speederys. I know other council colleagues have had some conversations about the importance of them, and so I would not ask that we discuss that later tonight until we have some more discussions with River Center tomorrow.
Are there any issues other than the fees that are paramount, Councilman?
No, as I said, I think streeteries are a good addition, but there are a number of logistics that other council members have expressed to me, and I'd like the opportunity to have that conversation as the liaison to River Center with the executive director.
He's here. He's right here.
I'm having deja vu all over again. I was trying to clarify what those issues are. I know we have, the fees were the major, I think pretty much the only issue last year, and they were raised so high that the streeteries didn't exist. We priced them out of existence. So my question to you again is, other than the fees, can you let me know what some of those other issues are, Councilman Ziprich?
There are a number of issues as to the logistics and how they're set up, and who's responsible for setting them up, and the cost associated therewith on the borough's behalf. COVID has ended. I know in speaking with other municipalities up and down in the shore area that they have all eliminated them. There are a number of diplomatic discussions that I think should be had before we pull the trigger on it.
Well, we're certainly not going to pull the trigger on it tonight. I'm just looking to have those discussions. I'd like to know what the issues are. I mean, from what I'm hearing is if we took that straw poll again about streeteries, you're not even sure that you think they should exist. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, you're not hearing that correctly. That's not what I said. And,
and
Councilwoman Morandi is absent tonight, and I know she has expressed a number of concerns to me. So in all fairness, I think it would be best if we had a full council discussion on the topic of streeteries. And I am not, for the record, I am not opposed to streeteries.
Okay, just because you made a point of saying most other towns have eliminated them, so I just wanted to know.
Well, that's a fact. Most other towns, Asbury Park being one of them, one of our biggest competitors, has done away with it.
Okay. And again, you said you wanted to discuss it with the full council? No. But Councilwoman Morandi is not here?
I will bring it back to full council at the next meeting.
What if I celebrate all the days of Passover? We're going to have a problem.
I'm sure the council president will sit in for you in the absence.
Okay, so you want to have a discussion. I just want to be clear. You want to have a discussion first with Bob from the River Center to hash out some details, and then you want to have a discussion with the full council.
And then I will bring it back to full council, yes.
All right. Okay.
Am I relieved of my duties?
You can go.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks to all of you for your show of support, and this season of Broadwalk will be the best ever.
Yeah. All right. just when you thought it was winding down, we have the cannabis ordinance. This is, people aren't interested in this one, right? This should go quickly. All right. Michael, go ahead, kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank all the residents who spoke up on cannabis tonight. There's nothing on our agenda to vote on. I just wanted to give everyone an update that we have been listening to the residents. We've gotten emails and I've even gotten phone calls. One of the big concerns was the elimination of distances. And they were originally eliminated because the ordinance that was passed in 2019 had distances that were conflicting and were challenged at our zoning board. And those challenges could not be sustained, or the borough's ordinance couldn't be sustained by the zoning board by the way the language was written. So we pulled parts of the ordinance back, and we're re-looking at it. Another portion that was, I guess, omitted in 2019 was an actual licensing process. No licenses have been issued. We've had many applications, but no licenses because there is no process. So we're also looking at that. And through discussions, again, this was brought to us by our Director of Community Development, and we're working with our engineer, our borough attorney, and the administrator to fix the holes that are in our 2019 ordinance. And one of the things that we found is we need to bifurcate that ordinance because there's two parts. There's the land use part where the planning board says, okay, you want to have your cannabis business on XYZ Street, fine. You're within borough code, go for it. But then there's the licensing part, that's the council's purview. So we have to set up that procedure so that people can get their licenses and they can open up. Right now, nobody can open because nobody's been issued a license. I would like, and because this is such a hot topic, and our community development director has asked that we move quickly on this, because the zoning part has to go to the planning board, and they have to give the thumbs up. But the licensing part, we can do on our own as the council. So I would like to have a special meeting. I would like our council to consider a special meeting sometime next week, because we're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's on these bifurcated ordinances, these amendments, so that we can have a full discussion on them and start moving them to the places that they need to go in relatively short order.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they want to add? No, I'm pulling out my phone to look at the calendar so we can find a special meeting date.
That's something you should share with us.
Yes. All right. So next week.
Mayor, I think we need to take a straw poll to see if a special meeting is even in the offering.
And we can certainly do that. John, you favor a special meeting? I know Michael does. He suggested it. Councilwoman Tridiano? All right. Councilwoman Sturdivant, are you okay next week with a special meeting to discuss cannabis? Okay. I'll ask Councilman Ziprich.
Mayor, I spent a good portion of yesterday afternoon with the union folks up at Air Dispensary, along with a number of other dignitaries that were on tour. I have made a number of very valuable contacts on behalf of the borough at that a meeting yesterday, so I think that it would be very, very beneficial to all concerned here in Red Bank to have a special meeting based on the information that I gather.
So that's a yes. All right. Well, aside from we'll have to send out that thing where, where we all have to pick a date, but regardless of the specifics, Jack, are you okay with a special meeting, assuming we can work for everybody? Okay, and Councilwoman Trigiano. Well, I'm not going to lock in a date right now. I know like Wednesday doesn't work for me, but I think the best way to do it is, again, we get several dates that may work, and the clerk will.
About it. One of us, Jacqueline or Jacqueline in my office, or Bonnie will do a call tomorrow.
Okay. Councilman, anything to
add? Chief, just be aware of Monday is the planning board meeting, the 22nd.
Okay.
It was canceled. Yeah, canceled, I thought.
No, Mayor, I think the only thing is, you know, if you're going to have a special meeting, what's the guiding document? What are people coming to comment on? What is the point of reference? What is the starting point of the conversation? What is the wishes of this majority? Are we bringing that document that was here a few meetings ago back to the forefront? Is that what people should be expecting to comment on? Calling a special meeting without people understanding what the starting point is of the wishes of the people here is not useful. So if I'm going to agree to be, present on the meeting, I want it to be because there's progress that's going to come from the dais. And I think understanding what that guiding document or what that starting point is going to be would be helpful. So is it that draft document that was proposed by the committee a few meetings ago, or what's going to be the guiding document of this special meeting?
As I stated when I was speaking before, we've been looking at the document that was presented. We took in comments mainly about the distances from schools, and we reworked that document. We also bifurcated that document so that the council and the licensing part is separate from the planning and zoning part, which has to go to the planning board. So there will be two different amendments, but we can address both of them at the special meeting. But we are reviewing with our engineer, with our director of community development, and our attorney to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so there will be plenty of time, and that's why I suggested early next week for this document to be, well, for lack of a better word, perfected before it's introduced to the public, so they will have plenty of time to see it, review it, and come to the special meeting with comments and questions.
But for the most part, for the people who have been diligently attending over and over and over again, they should expect that that draft document that they've seen in the past, maybe changed, a little bit or amended, but that guiding document is what they're going to be asked to comment on yet again.
The document that will be published will be the official document that the special meeting will be open up for comment for.
And Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
In my extensive conversations yesterday at the dispensary in Woodbridge, we are not the only municipality that is up against the fence on this, if you will. There are a number of municipalities around the state who have opted in, who are all still struggling with being able to produce an ordinance that is seamless. So I want everybody on the dais and the public to know that this new area of law is not as simple as one would like it to be. And I think what the work that the committee has done and the news that Chairman Ballard has just announced that they've bifurcated it is probably a good indicator that we're making some sort of headway, so that we can finally get around to issuing licenses and get our merchants up and running as quickly as possible.
Okay, so I guess we're letting the public know that we're going to be shooting for a special meeting next week. The new draft document that we're working off of will be published in plenty of time for everyone to review it and come with your questions, and hopefully we'll make a good chunk of progress at that meeting and get closer to putting this to bed.
Mayor, permission to speak?
Yes.
So that document is going to be prepared in committee. You're going to have, and then it'll be submitted to the clerk Friday before end of day.
I'm not promising a date. Again, we're dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Our attorney has to review it, our engineer has to sign off on it, and our community development. That's what we pay them for. Okay, that's what we do. So we rushed it through in 19, and that's why we're back here now.
Okay. Do we need a motion to close discussion and action, or do we just move on? No? All right. Mayor and council comments. I'll start. Councilwoman Sturdivant, any comments?
Just a quick comments that I wanted to share with you. Councilmember Morandi and I have been reaching out to all of these schools within Red Bank to talk about cannabis and just get their feedback and see how if they have any questions for us. We've met with the Red Bank Charter School, and then we've also met with the Red Bank Borough Public Schools, and we're still waiting to schedule some time with the Catholic schools. And also, again, I want to thank Kristen for coming in on behalf of the Red Bank Charter School to give us an update. We had a great meeting with her last week, and was really happy to give her an invite to share with us the success and progress of the charter school. Thank you.
Councilwoman Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that the Red Bank Borough Education Foundation's annual casino night is this Friday. It's not too late to get your tickets. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know half the people in this room are going to be there, so thank you, everybody, for your continued support for our schools. Red Bank Environmental Commission Green Fair will be April 20th, partnering with the middle school. You can find more information about that at the Environmental Commission's Facebook page. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Red Bank Fire Department for their strong work at Colony House. There was an apartment fire that was contained to one unit. I want to thank Middletown, Fairhaven, Little Silver, Tinton Falls, all for providing mutual aid. And I also just wanted to add to the mayor's proclamation earlier and thank Chief Nick for all of his service to the Red Bank Fire Department. Nick is a phenomenal leader. He's not the type to ever want the spotlight. He is the type to push the younger people forward, the probies forward. You get there, he wants people to push in, and he's well respected and he's loved by the department. So I just wanted to thank Nick for his service. And then lastly, I just wanted to, clarify my abstention earlier on the 3% tax. I didn't think it made sense for me to vote on a movement that kind of is partnered with something that was partnered with the Airbnb ordinance, which I voted no to the version of it that was passed. So it wouldn't really make sense for me to vote on the tax. And I also felt like there needed to be, I need a little more clarification once again on the where this tax is going that people are paying and the word tax that's involved in it. So I just wanted to provide that clarity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. A reminder for the Red Bank Parks and Recreation Committee that the annual spring egg hunt event is this Sunday, March 26th. It'll be at 11 o'clock a.m. sharp. The rain date will be April 2nd. It'll be held at the Count Basie Park, 11 Henry Street. It's for children of all ages. Please arrive early because the eggs are found quickly. And it's a great event for the children, family, friends, etc. So please partake and enjoy. Thank you.
Councilman Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report. I wanted to give an update on the cannabis amendments ordinance, and that's been done. So.
Okay. Public questions and, oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Ziprich, my apologies.
Thank you, Mayor. The senior center is coming along nicely. All of the windows and doors are in. Not all of them are installed, but so there's some minor adjustments that still need to be made. I did a walkthrough with Jackie and the construction team earlier today. The place looks really terrific. It's much further along from where we all start, Mayor, when you were with us a month or so ago. Jackie and team are working with us in the administration on a dedication date for early next month of the Councilman Thomas Hinzelman lobby. Also, we are looking forward to a dedication of the East Side Park Pavilion in memory of former Planning Board Chairman John Cash in early April as well. And that's all I have. Last thing. The DPW committee met yesterday. We talked about the progress that the consultant has made in reorganizing the department as his tenure begins to wane. And then there are some topics that will be discussed in executive session tonight pertaining to the outcome of that meeting that the chief has on the agenda for us. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the coolest things about being mayor is all the events I get invited to, and I just never would have even been aware of them. I did get to attend the YMCA. Chief was there. They had their pledge drive kickoff this week. I'm going to tell a quick story because a lot of people talked about all the good things that the Y does, but what I wanted to share, I didn't get a chance to, was my 80-something-year-old aunt who was recently widowed a few years ago, and she moved down to the area to be closer to family. Met her boyfriend at the Y in exercise class, and now they're shacked up together and living in sin. So it's another great reason why we should push to support the YMCA. So, I'm going to open things up for public comment and questions. You can talk about anything. I saw Linda in the back hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you, Mayor. Linda Hill, 64 McLaren Street. I have a question about, I also do wonder about the matchmaking that the Y is doing, but aside from that, I have a question about the library easement. I was in that parking lot just last week, and the surface is okay. It's not pristine. And I do know from having been involved in some construction projects that heavy equipment can kind of mess things up. So I wonder if there is, or can there be, something in the granting of that easement that would say that the company will repave or make sure that the surface that they leave us with is what we would want it to be. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's typically in that type of an agreement, but Dan, the attorney, he had to log off, but he reviewed it. I'll make sure with him that there is something in there. Not that they'll automatically repave it, but put it back to the condition that it was in if they cause any damage.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Stephen and then Laura.
I want to urge the council in considering this.
State your name.
I'm sorry, Stephen Hecht, 135 Branch Avenue. I want to urge the council to please consider the time for that special meeting. The last meeting was at 10 o'clock in the morning. I have no life, so I have no problem being here. But there are people who you need to hear from who do have a life. And you need to schedule that meeting in such a way that the public, not just old people, is able to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor and Chief, when we do that poll for times, can we just do evenings then?
That's fine. Sure, of course.
Laura Janone, 105 East Bergen Place. I wanted to speak, do I have to? I don't use that, oh, okay. I wanted to speak about the CBD meeting, the cannabis meeting also, because some people brought up, and I guess I should have mentioned I have a doctorate in nursing, but I also am a substance abuse coordinator. I wasn't at the last meeting because I was away in Seattle. My one daughter lives in Colorado. My other daughter lives in Washington, states that have had cannabis on the books much longer than New Jersey. I had the opportunity to visit one in Colorado several years ago. They are you go in, you hand your license to somebody, you're not allowed to enter unless you're 21 years old. I know this has been so many meetings about this, but I think there's some confusion as to how the operations go. Substance abuse coordination, I taught substance use and abuse at Monmouth University for 21 years, several sections a semester. They are much safer than many other businesses. You can't even enter unless you're 21. Liquor stores you can enter before you're 21, and then you have to show your license when you get in there. I know all this has been addressed, but the safety issues that people keep bringing up, I have not seen a problem in Washington or Colorado, states that I visit on numerous occasions because I have 2 children there. The other piece is I taught substance use and abuse and had nursing students and students from all different disciplines in my class. The laws surrounding cannabis have been extreme, and it's about time that we just wake up and look at it and see that it causes a lot less harm than alcohol. The chief at Monmouth University often would say he'd much rather have a student under the influence of marijuana than under the influence of alcohol. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the special meeting. I think everyone should be out here to say what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Full agenda tonight. Thanks for the time. So I just want to point out,
Your name and address.
Andy Zeitlin, 829 Orchard Road. I just want to point out one thing about the process for approval of a cannabis license in the state of New Jersey. An applicant cannot file with the state until they have a site and town, so executive and administrative approval. In other words, the planning board and this dais. So there's no licenses because there's no approvals from the town. So I just want you to be clear that nobody can get to the state until they get clarification and approval from the town. The second point I wanted to bring up was just to follow up to some great points about the safety issues and then the difference on which these businesses operate as opposed to a liquor store or a head shop. It is strictly regulated, and a business owner could lose their license if they allow a 21 or under person into their establishment. So it really is very different than what are the head shops and, frankly, liquor stores. Kids can go into liquor stores, and they do. So I think it's an important point that in approving legal cannabis in a town, you were decreasing the chances that children who are 1,000 feet, 500 feet, you could probably even argue 250 feet from a school, because they simply cannot go in. It's more about appearances, in my opinion. So I just want that to be clear, as well as the state, by the state law, does not allow any paraphernalia. You can't look into the establishment to see what is being sold in there. So it's way more discreet than any other regulated business in New Jersey, particularly alcohol. The last point I want to make is that the process is very, very difficult. We applied on March 15th, 2022 to the state. We have a statutory deadline that if we do not get approval from the town that lapses, we will lose our license. We have applied to the planning board and have two, I believe, payments that have been cashed, and we are waiting to be heard on our license. So I hope everyone understands that this is putting hardship on our attempts, and for little reason. The ordinance, I think that you introduced at the last meeting, should be the one that you start with, and let's have a discussion about where the issues are. But it certainly should not be whether it's a few feet from a school, and it certainly should not be over the question of the licensing board. The state has done an amazing job, and I hope everyone has an opportunity or had the opportunity to read the ordinance and some of the guidance. It's really a work of really significant legislative progress for cannabis in the nation, not just in the state. So I look forward to this special meeting, and if anybody needs statistics or data about how the state process works, I will certainly be there and prepared. Thank you.
Thanks for the work. Thank you.
Donald Ellis, Highland Avenue, Red Bank. I actually just want to take a moment to thank the council for all the wonderful work you're doing here tonight, and your open-mindedness on all the issues that have been presented, certainly especially the one that I was interested in on the parking. But I really just wanted to say thank you to all of you. You dedicate a lot of your personal time for this, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And thank you. I just want to thank you for that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Jimmy, hold on. We had someone online. I already forgot in 30 seconds. Chief just told me.
Nicole, sure, you have the floor.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. So I would like to know what the plan is with respect to cannabis, and are there going to be a limited number of locations in Red Bank? What are we planning to do about this? I would also really appreciate if the people on the side of cannabis could understand that not everyone who's opposed to having all of this activity in town, that the benefits of cannabis is lost on them. I am someone who purely practices alternative medicine, tried to save a dog from cancer using THC. I'm not new to this by any means. I've also lived in New York, where you walk down the sidewalk and you're constantly breathing in cannabis because people are walking the streets smoking it. So as much as you would like to talk about how clean and safe the premises are, I don't think that is necessarily the debate, at least not for me. My sister lives in Denver, Colorado. I've spent a lot of time in San Francisco. I'm not uneducated about this stuff. I think if you polled the people who live in cities where there is a lot of this presence, they would tell you the downsides, and they are not necessarily the downsides that you're speaking to right now. Like I said, as someone who lives in this town, I would like to see limitations on how many locations we have here. The comparison to alcohol, if alcohol was presented today, knowing what we know, I'm sure we would handle it differently. So I would prefer to not, keep hearing that comparison, because for me it does not hold water. So I would like to know what the plan is for managing licenses in this town, because as a resident here, again, we have the people that want to open dispensaries, and I also don't think the argument of bringing business to this town is something that for me holds water either. If we want to talk about filling empty storefronts, let's talk about how to handle that. Opening the gates to everyone who wants to open a dispensary or a store or a business that is associated with cannabis, to me, filling square feet for retail in this town is not a reason to open up the town to that either. So I would like to know what the plan is to manage the number of locations in this town for this. We do have a dispensary out on Route 35. Drive past there on any Saturday and you will see traffic jams from people trying to turn into the parking lot. As we know, a lot of dispensaries limit the number of people allowed in at one time, so there's a line outside. I don't particularly think that that looks very good in a town, and we talk about congestion already here in this town, so that is something else to think about. There are other matters here than the traditional anti-cannabis, pro-cannabis debate that keeps getting presented here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. I just hate to turn my back. That's what it is. Good afternoon, Jimmy Dark, 48 West Sunset Avenue. One thing I want to say, I have not here to throw nobody under the bus and the timeout seat anywhere. But the thing I really want to mention too is referred to last meeting, Councilman, about you say you care for everybody, but my thing is, what do we have to do to get a four-way stop? Because we had 100-some signatures, and then you keep waiting and waiting. It's for everybody. You got elderly people, and sometimes just go there and see this. And you know, I go over there. I say, God, you know, maybe I better put a reflective vest on and somebody see me. When you know, you got to stick your head out there like you're trying to turn, or get out, you know, make a turn like you're driving the car. You're driving yourself, and it'd be very helpful. But my thing is, Councilman, everybody should count, not just kids, elderly people, senior citizens, people in wheelchairs, walkers. And you see this firsthand. You really see this. But my thing is, I just want to know this four-way stop, Councilman, because you go across town, you see 1, 2, 3. We have 100 people, and I said, do we have to get a lawyer to get involved to get this done? Because you're waiting around for an answer. Also, next thing I was to say, you know, you say you care about people, but then my thing is these contamination down for the Sunset, that place is jacked up. It should be just put a drape over it, closed beyond repair. But myself, Marine Park, there's nothing wrong with it. You do 3 or 4 things, it's open. 22 years, even at the Superstorm stand, it's been abandoned. You had the resource, and you can look down the street, you can't, what you gonna look at? It's beyond repair, but Marine Park, you can look across there, you don't have to worry about your life being in danger, you're gonna inhale something, and this is for everybody, and that place should be taken care of right away. It shouldn't go another 10 years, it's still closed. And the main thing I want, let's see, and I said it should be taken care of right away. But my thing is, like I said, I'm not here to throw the park, but I have a thing for anybody. When you go online, turn on Colonial High School up there. And that place is still going on, and you hear about, and personally I know one young lady, and you said 100 people got brain tumors. This one young lady I just found out, she got a problem. Now she might have to be tested. So far I haven't heard that. I said, well, let's pray to God. But my thing is, look at all the places around here in Missouri. They still won't say they got close school. But the thing, and then you got behind Second Baptist, closed. And then you got even Freehold, down the road from the social service building. But it was a townhouse or whatever. And the lady came out there, it's about 15, 20 years ago, I don't remember. But she was out there crying. Said, I bought this place for me and my son to have a place. And it was built on the dump. So the whole thing is in Missouri, so now they got to kick everybody out. But my thing is, you can't make a decision for something that's bad. Why put somebody in harm's way, and then when the damage happens, then nobody returns away? That's what I'm trying to say to anybody, everybody's here. These engineers and testers that's here, they go from town to town. And myself's just like a batting average. The batting average is probably what, one in 1,000 or 0 in 1,000, because everything they touch, it's done. So my thing is, it's very dreadful to see that, and it pops up on TV. And the last thing I want to say, down in Tom's River, they just settled a big lawsuit down there about the place. This was Cancer Alley. This is even when I was a kid. And they said they just, wrote it up and said now they're just trying to settle it out. But my thing is down the street from 41 I've been down there, 33 years, and I said, you know what, it's a shameful thing. Let it stay like it is. Fix Marine Park. You got the resource to do that, and nobody can make sense. These testers and engineers make $1 and go on to the next town. Because they fail. Everything's been failed. You never see nothing on TV, newspaper, even radio, and show that the things was good. Because once you dig something, it's gonna come up, everything's escaped. You can't catch gas. But you can't see, just like COVID. You can't see COVID, you can't catch it. But there's gas. But my thing is, fix Marine Park, take care of that, because that place still shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Mayor, permission to speak? Just quickly, the four-way stop at Layton and Dr. James. Did traffic safety look at that? Is that a good spot?
They did. It was, if you remember, we did most recently one at Spring and Tower Hill and one at Chestnut and Pearl. That Dr. Parker and Layton would have been the third one if we were prioritizing based on accident data and crash history and injury history. So it wasn't as high as the two that were done.
No worries.
So, it was,
according
borderline.
to the new bylaws, is our attorney here?
Jack is on for.
Jack's on. Okay, so according to the new bylaws, in order for me to introduce a resolution, I need to have a sponsorship of X amount of council members.
This would be an ordinance, but yes.
Ordinance, sure.
Isn't this public comment?
Yeah, it's fine. Everything's great. So if that's the case, then would everybody up here agree if I were to put that resolution on for the next agenda ordinance? Would you guys sponsor that? Would everybody be good with passing that ordinance for the stop signs at Layton and Dr. James?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yeah.
Councilwoman, are you proposing that you're going to introduce that at the Public Safety Committee and then request a sponsor, or you're just introducing it to get it done without a formal procedure?
Not looking for faults, looking for remedies. The bylaws.
I'm just asking you a procedural question.
The bylaws state. The bylaws that you introduced state that you could either get a full committee and that the committee's approval to then move towards introducing an ordinance, or you can get a certain percentage of your council to co-sponsor. There's not a time when unless we're in an open public meeting, where I'd be able to ask my council mates if they're willing to sponsor an ordinance that I would like to put on the agenda. So I'm just asking it here now. I said, if I were to put that on, would you be comfortable? You know, we're just looking for solutions here. This isn't,
This is public comment, though. This is the wrong place.
No, it's not.
Yes,
that
it
was
is.
That it was the third four-way stop that was being implemented, and that it was not as high a priority as the first shift. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, except I didn't say it was being implemented. I just said when we looked at all the intersections, that was the third highest priority based on the crash data. We introduced 2 at that time.
And we would need an ordinance.
And you would need an ordinance to do any more, including this one.
So I'm just asking, would everybody be okay with an ordinance on the next agenda?
So Councilwoman Triano, before I answer your question to council, is now the time for Councilwoman Triano to introduce this, and ask for co-sponsorship? Just so I want to confirm that first.
So this is public comment. I think it's I think to the Councilwoman's point, I'm perfectly willing to participate in her impromptu straw poll to say, yes, I support an ordinance. But to your point of order, Councilman Jackson, no, it's not the right time. But in all fairness to the Councilwoman, I will agree that a four-way stop sign should be added to the next agenda.
And apologies, council members of Rich. I should have said council SEL to the lawyer. But I echo what Council Member Zipperich just said, which is Councilwoman Giordano, I would be happy to co-sponsor a four-way stop sign for the, for the safety of those residents.
Awesome.
All people, not just the young, et cetera, but let's just do it, properly, that's all.
This is when I have access to you all.
Okay. Hold on, I think Cindy, you had your hand up next.
Cindy Barnum, 71 Wallace Street. So I had a question on the bollards. Are they working now? Does anybody know?
They work, they perform their function. There's a problem with the pistons that the manufacturer's working on with this, but they lock up, they lock down.
Well, I know they were popping up.
Right,
Then we
that's been
put-
temporarily resolved, and we're working on a permanent fix with the manufacturer.
So did you
now.
and then you put the metal bar across it to keep it down?
Correct.
So what I'm asking you is during Broadwalk, will they come up?
Yes, if we release the bar, they'll come up.
And then we're gonna put them down every night?
No,
Oh, that's right, we're gonna leave them up.
right. They work fine in the up position. The problem is in the down position.
And who's paying to fix those?
The manufacturer is covering the replacement part.
Okay, because you weren't sure last time I asked.
No, the manufacturer's offered to, but we're testing it first to make sure it works before we ask them to give us whatever it is, 16 of them, or whatever it is we need. Each bollard has its own a piston or whatever the term is for it. So you have to replace them individually, but we don't want them to ship 16 of them to us until we make sure one or two work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hold on, I had Nancy and then Freddie.
Good evening, I'm Nancy Blackwood, 34 Chestnut Street. Regarding the intersection at Dr. James Parker and Layton, I just want to cite section 2B-07, multi-way stop applications from the MUTCD. It does say that in addition to crash data, there are other criteria that could be used, and that would be the need to control vehicle pedestrian conflicts near locations that generate high pedestrian volumes, or at an intersection of two residential neighborhood collector through streets of similar design and operating characteristics where multi-way stop control would improve the traffic operational characteristics of the intersection. Billy, you're looking at me? Yeah, I did cite something. I just want to say, I think it's important to have that intersection. I personally stood out there one day for 7 minutes and I counted 45 cars at 10:45 on a Tuesday morning, which I thought would be low volume. So I'm pretty sure it is higher than that. So I think the residents and even people who do use Layton as the bypass to Shrewsbury Avenue, guilty, they'll appreciate that. And of course, being a Complete Streets advocate, I would love to have bump outs, even if you just paint them. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor and Councilman, P.O. Box 2074, good thing. Mayor and Councilman, I just want to know, have any of y'all walked on Shrewsbury Avenue by the post office lately? Well, you need to go up there. In front of that post office, on both sides, is very filthy, very filthy. And I know it's a county road, but we need to have that sweeper for them cars to move on one side for one day, sweep that whole side, then do the other side. I mean, it's very filthy up there. It's nasty up there. It's nasty. The other thing is, some of y'all councilors don't know it. I lost a son. He was 8 months old for an ear infection. And I live, I'm not saying down before the Sunset, but I lived on Bank Street and Chapin Avenue. My son stayed in the hospital at Riverview for 5 days. Went into a coma, had a seizure, went into a coma. Then they shipped him to Long Branch. He lived till he was 2 years old. I don't want to see no kid go through what I went through. New York, Philadelphia Children's Hospital. Then he finally passed away. The other thing is, Mike, last year on Zoom, I think it was Eric, you stated that it was 25 houses that y'all had fixed up. I don't know if that number correct. Is that number right? Is 11 I'm just asking, is it 11 houses or?
To be honest, I don't remember. I remember asking Shauna, who's running the program, how many applications we had and how many had been actually fixed up. I don't remember the number, and I don't want to give you the wrong number.
Yeah, well, I count, well, being somebody, it was 11 houses, but I just want to say, maybe, okay? Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
And I know Jimmy wants to come up, but really quick, I just want to address, again, we've talked about your son, and I apologize. That's heartbreaking to hear that someone lost a son for any reason. But I just want to reiterate again, and I've said this before, that area down at Sunset Park, we are under a state mandate to cap that because it is toxic. And we have to do that by May of 2024, correct, Chief? So that's the only thing before this council is getting that capped so that those toxins do not continue to seep up. So that's our only focus right now. No parks, no nothing. Like I said before, I don't even think we should refer to it as Sunset Park because it's not a park. It's a landfill that we have to cap, and we will cap.
Well, you know that the daycare center in West Bergen, by the park there, those kids can't play in there. They've done 10 years.
I know very well. I was on the Board of Education. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying. I hope there don't be no park down there. And I don't want no parents go through what I went through.
Again, there are no plans that I am aware of for any park down there. It's a landfill. That's all it is.
Thank you.
We get someone online, Jimmy.
Jessica Ramirez, you have the floor. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Jessica Ramirez, 38 Layton Avenue. I just wanted to comment about the parking that we talked about earlier in the meeting. I live on Layton, and a couple of years ago they started ticketing cars that would park for more than two hours as per the sign. I went and got my resident permit. I do agree that a lot of cars do park for over 2 hours. And I've noticed that a lot of people are putting up cones to save their spot so that others don't park there. And I just don't know if anyone is keeping track of that, if our parking officials are doing anything about that, but I don't think that that's something that should be done. Also, one time I went to the police station to file a complaint, and there was no parking available because there was an event at Count Basie Theater. And I think they use that parking lot. They rent it out when they have events. And I just think that there should be a couple of spaces that are not rented out in case that people do need to visit the police station like I did. There was absolutely no parking. The person that was there collecting the money for Count Basie said that I'm not allowed to park there because they were the ones using the lot right now. So I just think that that's something that should be looked at as well.
Jessica, going backwards from your second comment, it might have been a miscommunication by the security guard. We do make them reserve spots closest to the police station for just what you were talking about. So he might have misunderstood, or maybe they made a mistake and oversold the parking. But the agreement requires that they leave that small front lot open for people coming to the police department. As for the first one,
they told me I had to back out of that space, and they put someone else in that space. So I don't think that that's, I'm a resident of Red Bank. I should have the right to park there if I need to go to the police station. They literally told me to get out of the spot and put someone else there.
I believe you. I'm just saying it might have been a mistake on their part because they reserve spots just for the police station for people coming here, or at least they're supposed to. The first issue on the traffic cones, I'll talk to the parking. If they notice that, they do take the cones away. I've never noticed it myself on Layton, so I'll ask them to take a look.
Thank you.
I just want to say something right quick. I just want to say thank you all. I appreciate it very much to everybody. Thank you. And
thank you.
One quick thing to my guy. I just said, the reason I'm saying that it's devastating if you don't know somebody dealing with something. And that's why I keep well, about the 10 years in testimony.
Jimmy, if you're going to talk, you got to talk a little bit, just so we get it recorded.
Jimmy Dart, 48 Western Sunday. The reason I'm saying this because it's a very dangerous thing. You're playing with people's lives, and my thing is a devastating, dangerous thing to play with people's lives doing that. To me, if you're going to do something, notify people, tell people what's going on. You can put flyers in everybody's mailbox, but my thing is it's a dangerous playing with the people thing, and you hear it on the news all the time, in the newspaper. And you said these people, whoever these people are, they should be here sitting down here answering these questions. Let people know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy, I'll say it again. I keep saying it. There is no plan to develop down there. The state has mandated that this borough cap that landfill so that that poison does not continue to seep up and into the river. And that's what this council is focused on doing, period.
They should be here to answer these questions. They should be somewhere in the Bahamas or Florida or somewhere where nobody can answer questions. Because, I respect everybody on the council, but my thing, you just understand, when people lose their lives, if you hear this is going way back in time, Walgreens, you see how it is? It's gone. What can you do? Nobody ain't want to play with people's lives, but they should be there. Thank you.
Sue.
Suzanne Muscoli, 25 Cedar Street. See, it comes back to enforcement. Keith, I respect what you just did about the four-way stop sign. Could we add something at Bridge and Dr. James? Because with lunch break growing, right, we all see the construction happening and the demand and the use, that's going to get worse. Bridge and Dr. James is horrible. I watch kids when I walk my dogs. I can't tell you, I almost got hit, and just people walking, riding their bikes. I mean, that weird turn is ridiculous and scary. No joke. That needs to be looked at. And there's no words, just drive through it, especially at 4 o'clock. Number one. Number two, yes, I also agree to the prior caller in. I have seen numerous cones on the west side holding spots. I actually got a whole portfolio of pictures, because I can't believe that's what's happening. It comes back to enforcement. And it's the same cones, so I don't think anyone really is going around picking up cones when it's the same cones. I mean, if people are doing their job, to your point, that when they see it, they take cones away. I mean, I have on my street cars parked the wrong way, and they never get tickets. And as I mentioned earlier, I see 3 trucks in my little squares I usually walk my dogs are parking over the sidewalks. Why aren't they getting tickets? The sidewalks is, Nancy just said here how important the streets are, the sidewalks are, and the safe streets are. Why aren't we getting ticketed for oversized trucks that are blocking the sidewalks? Where's that enforcement? I mean, we spent money, right, on the bike path, and the people aren't using the bike path because the cars are blocking it, yet they're on the sidewalks, and I know in the past, Barbara Bowes was complaining because you have bikers on the sidewalks that are, interrupting people walking. It all comes together, right? We need the sidewalks to be clear for people to walk on. You need the bike path to be clear and safe, and the street with the speed enforced so people feel safe to use them for the bikes. And then it's a nice groove. Everybody's using the right spot. But it comes back down to enforcement. So I hope you guys can do something with that other street. And my other question is, when people see issues, where do they go to? Like, do we call the park authority? Do you call the police? What would you tell, like, the woman who called in that she keeps seeing cones or she keeps seeing issues? Like, what do we do?
So for the last question, the parking authority, yes, for the cones, they'll come out and collect them. I mean, they look to make sure they're not there for a valid reason, like upcoming construction or something. But I know what you're talking about.
So to that point, right? Can you put on one of the tweets or on Facebook? Hey, let people know who to call directly instead of just complaining, right? I know now we can put that out there. Say, listen, if you see cones, please send a picture or call so and so this is the right, proper way to communicate.
I gotta say, this is the first time I've ever heard a complaint about cones in the street. I actually called one.
I'll give you 5
business.
pictures tonight.
No, I believe you. I actually called one business myself this weekend because I saw it, that was on the east side, and asked them to take their cones out because I saw them doing it more than once. So I agree with you, but parking would normally take care of it, not the police.
Right, so let's communicate and get it out to people. Put
No,
it
I
together.
didn't know to communicate that because you're the first person I've ever, in 34 years, ever heard say
I
that's
think
an issue.
some people are scared to speak up because you don't want to, you don't really want to upset your neighbors. You're living with people, right? And we're hoping that the town and the people who are in charge and the people that are supposed to enforce the system will enforce it. Because you don't want to be like ratting on your neighbors, right? We're supposed to live together. But you need somebody in authority to enforce it. I mean, I've seen garbage cans like literally on my street from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I can't park on my street. There's literally no parking because I have a lot of people that work in the area. And when I lived in Arthur Place, when there was a problem, they gave residents stickers. And Arthur Place got cleaned up because of the kids at the Catholic school. And it worked because you had some enforcement, you had the residents leaning on the town to do their job. So maybe it's an option to branch out the sticker situation to outside the center of town, maybe more on the west side so we don't have it, or more on the outskirts of town, because this is getting more.
We do the stickers everywhere. I mean, I think that woman just said she had a sticker on Layton Avenue. We do it all over town.
Great. I would love to get down on my street because then maybe I could park on my street during the day. Like I Uber sometimes just so I don't lose my parking spot. That's how crazy it gets. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Linda Hill, 64 McLaren Street. Mayor, before you close the meeting, I just want to address the elephant in the room that I think we all heard, and I hope we're all concerned. And that was the nice one from Homedale, who was talking about the amount of cannabis that is being sold illegally in Red Bank. I don't know to what extent that is happening, but as the gentleman said, there's no question that the legal cannabis, legal products from including marijuana, is way more safe than what kids could be buying on the street. So I wonder, in conjunction with us moving forward and considering cannabis, whether we can also hear what the chief, what our police officers think is actually happening on the street, and if it is an issue, what can we do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Can I have a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I know we have to stay we have executive session, so thank you all for being here. We got a lot done tonight. Thank you for your questions and comments.
So, Mayor, we just need executive session for the purpose of discussing 2 litigation matters and 1 personnel matter. No action is expected to be taken.